There has been far too much hypocrisy in the field of civil rights. It is easy enough to give rousing speeches or call for legislation which has no possibility of passage. Robert Kennedy. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Friday night, where we can talk about politics. Feel free to join in. The description box contains information to join the chat with me, and I want to just double check to make sure if someone comes in, I can hear it, so I get the ding. There we go. An interesting tidbit, if you guys want to follow along. This may tie in with political agendas and stuff like that, but I just found this out and it's kind of interesting. All right, let's look at Jeffrey Epstein date of birth. All right, and we get January 20th, 1953. Let's do an age calculator from date of birth. Oh, by the way, my audio, it's at a very low bit rate because of sound issues I'm having. So if you if my voice sounds weird to you, it's because of that. I had to lower my bit rate. 20th 1953. Now I was kind of looking around at, when when did this Jeffrey Epstein stuff start going around? Hi, Kathy B. And I'll have to double check, but let's just look at it. So Jeffrey Epstein's birthday was January 20th, 1953. At July 20th, 2019, he's 66 years and 6 months and 0 days old. And so if let's say we go and look at Jeffrey Epstein, and if we just focus it on, can I even, I can't do a search here. Let's look at Jeffrey Epstein from this. Let's do tools, custom range, and not necessarily always working, but we'll see. And there's just a lot of stuff about the horrors of Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't follow it, so if people just tell me exactly when, there's a lot of stuff that was Jeffrey Epstein got arrested and all this stuff, let me know. But don't you think that's pretty pretty funny in the esoteric occult world? I mean, it could have been any other year. It could have been any other month. But let's see. Let's look at when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm a loud sneezer, so. Let's see. We may not be able to find it there. How about Arrested Development? After a month? Let's see. Let's go ahead and do custom range from, I don't know, the beginning of July to the end of July. Oh my goodness, doing it all wrong. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Shirley. Okay, so he was arrested on the 6th. So he'd be he wouldn't be quite 66 years and 6 months. I don't know. Just something to think about. I don't know what with the maybe it's just coincidence. Let's just chalk it up to that. I'll chalk it up to coincidence. I don't know about you guys. Anyways, today you are probably... Oh, I still have that Goyim Gazette someone gave me. Let's keep going there. All right, so within Google News, let's look at unrest. And let's go ahead and look at Palestine. And go and look at news. Yeah, you guys should come on in here, you know. It'd be good to talk to each other. I don't have to be the only one talking. Now, although I don't really follow too much, I looked into it because I just want to see. Well, Israel's always been doing stuff to Palestine, so I know things aren't going to change in that regard. And then we've got two people who are congressmen, I think, and they were blocked by President Trump to going into Palestine, or is it Israel in the Gaza? I don't know exact details, but and again, Palestinian killed by Israeli police. Seems like there's nothing new there, and I think it's funny. I don't think there's a. I mean, at first, I think a lot of people were probably supportive of Israel, that they wanted their own land, etc. And then that was probably in the 1990s, going to 2000s, and then now that there have been a lot of media outreach from Palestine about the Israeli occupation, people are less and less supportive of Israel, and that's good because they are also being hypocrites because of what happened to them. They were victims playing the Holocaust card in World War II, and now they are doing pretty much anything they want to anyone they want without impunity, and they just play the victim card. But then again, what's interesting is that President Bush is the biggest supporter so far of Israel. And the Democrats, aside from probably the two here, and they are supportive of Donald Trump, but probably not in that same way because they don't want to align themselves to Donald Trump. But they're like, yeah, we gotta not boycott Israel. The Democrats and Republicans, both sides of the aisle. The hypocrisy of everything, I would say. And then we look at unrest. Let's look at unrest. There's a lot of unrest over Hong Kong, and what's interesting is that there are certain people who are... Give me a second here. Hi, Travis. There are certain people who are chiming in about the Hong Kong civil unrest protests, and let's look at Jackie Chan, Mulan, Hong Kong unrest. Oh, he left. All right, so all right, maybe you got it figured out. I don't know why I said Travis. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, what's going on?
All right, so I said Hong Kong. All right, Disney Mulan star Liu Yifei and Jackie Chan slammed for comments on Hong Kong protests. They're basically siding with the Chinese government on this. And for those of you that aren't aware, and I'm not aware, but basically, back in 1997 or so, Hong Kong was occupied by the UK, and they pretty much left, but allowed Hong Kong to govern themselves, but knowing that they belong to China, and they got had something like a 50-year rule that China couldn't dictate any laws for Hong Kong, and so there's been a slippery slope legislation made from China to Hong Kong saying that certain detainees within Hong Kong will be extradited to mainland China for whatever, and so there's been a lot of outcry about that with the Hong Kong residents. Now, that may not be the best official whatever explanation for it, but that's kind of what I got. If anyone has a better story about that, educate me, please.
Well, Hong Kong is one of the most profitable ports in the world, and important ports in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Being the first hub in Asia from America, let's say, and then also the other way. Products come, let's say, from what we would call Middle East, Europe, or something. Anyway, and so the 200-year lease after the Opium Wars in like 1797, I think it was. Yeah, after 200 years, Britain honored their handover of what I guess could be called quasi-sovereignty to Hong Kong, but in agreement with China also. And like you said, there was a 50-year one country, two systems type of agreement with Beijing and Hong Kong. Hong Kong has its own money, has its own language, has its own culture, has its own schools, has its own. It is a city state, you could say, and but being so profitable, yeah, China's moving in very quickly. What, it's been 20 years, and they're already. Uh, but the people of Hong Kong, gee whiz, what awesome activists and standing up, every day and night for what now, almost 3 months. There's been over 1 million people on the streets.
I wish we
And
could get 1 million people on our streets.
I know it. I lived in China actually for 6 years, from 08 to 014 or whatever, and I've been to Hong Kong many times, and almost every time I was down there, there was some sort of protest. The people were just like, "Nope, f that! You're not doing that, government." And it was their own government, they're talking about, and it was just awesome to see, these people just kind of controlling their lifestyle by standing up and speaking out and saying something. So this move, if I don't know, Iban, if you saw the recent move by China, which was to put just across the border in the Chinese city of Shenzhen, this huge military show, right? Tanks and soldiers and all this stuff. If they cross that border, Hong Kong is part of, and I don't want to be too specific, I'm not sure, but let's just say it's an international protected place. And I want to use the word UN, I want to use the word, American agreement type words, but I'm not exactly sure on the treaties and stuff we have. So if China does that, if they actually cross that border, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So, but more importantly, it's just watching those people do what we should be doing. Standing up, just being knowledgeable about what their government is doing, what a government is doing, and and speaking out and saying no, just lawyers, doctors, professionals standing up, walking down the street every night, getting maced, getting uh, threatened, let's say, by police action, and just saying, "Go for it, do it," and it's quite interesting in that respect.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about Hong Kong? Do you support Hong Kong or China? I probably would guess that you're supportive of Hong Kong protesters, but I just wanted to ask.
When it comes to, because it's a loaded question. When it comes to, because your title is civil rights, let's say, or something to that, a quote to that effect, the hypocrisy of
With the
civil
quote of the
rights.
day.
Yeah, and so this Hong Kong, what's happening in Hong Kong is a awesome example of folks standing up for what they believe are their rights. Um, However, I have a big problem with the term civil rights because it doesn't mean what we think it means. Civil rights are granted by governments, and they
Yep.
can just as be easily be taken away as they are granted. So, but
I mean, there's it's not about any corruption or change of just the system, but just have a bigger country just leave us alone and let us govern ourselves type of thing in a bigger aspect. Anyway,
sure,
yeah.
sure, and China, let's just say we can call it a communist country, but when you're actually there, it's way more democratic, socialist. It's actually quite free. You know, you can jaywalk, or you can walk down the street with let's say a beer bottle. You rarely see police action unless there's a problem between two people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's never police stopping someone for some sort of written violation. You walk down the street sideways, so we're gonna bust you. And so it's way more free in that respect when I'm there, and even the Chinese people agree, and they think America is just this lockdown state. And when I was there, when I first got to China, I was like, no, America's free. But after I was there in China for about 2 years, I looked back at where we live and was like, holy shit, we live in a lockdown state. My God, you can't do anything without permission, permits, fees, paperwork. You got to go to some sort of office to ask for this or that. So anyway, uh, and so whatever China wants, remember there's a lot of history in China too, in the East Asian area, as you probably know, maybe through your parents' history of Korea, Japan, Philippines, Malaysia, all that.
Mm-hmm.
And so China believes they used to own all that: Korea, Japan,
Mm-hmm.
Mongolia, Vietnam, and so
That was the whole
their
point of
history
that
book.
was the whole point of the Korean War. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yes, and so China believes they still own all that through history. Right. So their moves possibly to take back Hong Kong, which is an island. It's actually not part of the mainland. There's a sub part of it that is part of the mainland. But Hong Kong is an island, and if they cross the border to just lock down and say we run the show around here,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a move to say kind of like America and British, European, Portugal, Spain, Europe, all that did colonization back in the day, just saying we're taking it over, whether you like it or not. We got the gunpowder.
Yeah. It was a lot like the situation with mainland China and Taiwan too. That used to be a big thing, but now that's always been kind of we don't hear about that in the news very much, because the U.S. stance with Taiwan and China was always just leave Taiwan alone, just like South
Yeah,
Korea.
but in China, as what they would call a Westerner, I'm a Westerner, a white guy Westerner. You know, if I mention Taiwan or even Hong Kong, man, the Chinese people through their education system, the same brainwashing we go through, but just in their doctrine, they get super defensive. Taiwan is China, you know, and I was like, whoa, I didn't say it's not. I was just saying that it's interesting. They have their own money, you know, their own president, their own something. Like, well, yeah, well, because that's not, because they're not following the rules of China, blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, on the mainland there, the propaganda for the Chinese folks is just as strong as it is for us, our propaganda. Like, oh, we need to support Israel, or we need to bomb Iraq for some reason, you know, and everyone stands up, yes, you know, and it's just super interesting to see. It's very dangerous, but what do we do, man? Can't you and me can't do anything except to watch the show.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking at Newsweek article. They're saying China tells U.S. to stay away amid new weapon sale to Taiwan and support for Hong Kong protests. That's interesting. And Taiwan is monitoring how China deals with the Hong Kong protesters. So
remember, that's our news. In their news, in Chinese news, it says, I'm sure, something to the effect of Taiwan is in full support of Beijing and will join forces, blah, blah, blah. You know.
Yeah, that's funny. Let's see. Where U.S. is just so heavily involved everywhere. It's crazy. All right. What else? Am I forgetting other things? Let's focus on the chat. Kathy, Shirley, what are you guys' thoughts? Excuse me, sorry. Kathy B saying, went to college with a young man who's born and lives in Hong Kong. It's hella expensive to live there. His father was an herbalist. His mother died while we were attending Temple U. He wasn't rich. Majored in actuarial science, banking. Is there protests anywhere else? Because I seem to be focusing more on France, Brazil, and Hong Kong, China. Let's see. Oh, there's mass protests planned in Zimbabwe. I didn't hear about that.
As a what?
Mass protests planned in Zimbabwe.
Oh.
Let's see. They were expected to have protests today. Countries' trade unions and the opposition movement for Democratic Change Party are protesting austerity measures. And really no, I don't see any news here. Mass protests Zimbabwe. Oh, sorry, you guys can't see. Kathy is, I think people are being suppressed and sick of it. Yes, in Hawaii and Canada. Okay, there's protests in Hawaii and Canada. I have to look that up. Let's move over to here. Okay, so oh man. There's violent crackdown on activists underway in Zimbabwe ahead of the planned mass protests. Ooh.
They didn't even get the chance.
Yeah, they didn't even get the they didn't even get the chance. Let's look at mass protests in Canada. I don't even see it. Nope, I don't see anything with Canada. Let's look at mass protests. Oh, Kathy B saying the Canada protests were also quashed. All right, battle for the heavens on Mauna Kea. Native Hawaiians protest. Oh, come on. Let's view. Let's see. There we go. So people who want to get around all that subscription stuff that you're gonna do, like if you go to LA Times or you want to watch it incognito, like I'm using Firefox incognito, not that it matters, I'm still using my IP address, but still, if you guys are wanting to get around that, all you have to do is go to your browser view and go to reader view, and that'll get rid of all that stuff, so you can actually read the article. Just something that people can do. All right, so here by Sandy Tolan, a battle for the heavens on Mauna Kea. Native Hawaiians protest plans for a massive telescope. Ooh, wow. I wonder how many people are. Is that the? Is that what you're talking about, Kathy B? Let's see. Wow, they occupied the Mauna Kea access road, blocking equipment trucks from ascending. Huh. Well, I didn't even know about that. I mean, it's not huge, but it's enough to, I guess, stop it. I mean, ooh, actually, that's a good amount of people. I'd say a couple hundred. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough to get a lot of people out there. Ooh. All right. All right, so that's that. As protests, let's look at hi Bob. Oka Mohawk, Canadian there's an Oka crisis which began on no, that's not it. I don't know. This is older stuff. Let's look at news. Someone's coming in. Oh, someone came in but left. It's weird. Okay. They're not huge. They've just been going on for years. Yeah, it looks like there's an article 3 weeks ago. You know, one of the things I really don't trust is for coverage of any mass protests going on in the world until it's already out, right? I feel as though there's whatever mass protests there are, the mainstream media is not going to even cover it until someone else covers it, and then they're like, oh yeah, we should probably cover this and put our spin on it, which is
Which is why you shouldn't watch the mainstream media
Yeah, I would say
at
that.
all.
Yeah, I'm at a loss for words, because that's something that's going on.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we talked about. I think it was last night or the night before. Just about taking care of our family, our local life. Yes, there are things going on. Humanly, we think we need to be um, concerned about. Oh, we want to help other humans, but if you can't help yourself first
Hmm.
and be free first yourself, you can't help, right?
Yeah,
A slave can't help another slave, right?
yeah,
You're all slaves in the end, which we are generally under the title of your show called civil rights.
actually,
So
the
those,
title of this is just the hypocrisy of political agendas. So it's
oh,
kind of
that's right.
a very general title, because it could
Yep.
go with a whole bunch of other things like the.
I was
Oh, go ahead.
getting at.
Yeah, you're just kind of referring to the quote of the day with Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, because I think it's more important that quote versus the title of political agendas. Hell, of course, any body that we give authority to is going to have an agenda. There- You know, Now, civil rights, let's go back because a lot of people think that civil rights are actually a thing or they apply to them or grants them some sort of privilege or benefit. But that's all false. That's the agenda, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's, can I grant you a right? Me?
No.
Okay, yes, you already have the freedom to do everything that I could do, you know, including up to killing each other. We have the right to do that. Is it proper? No. That's why we don't do it. But if a document, a government says, okay, well, you have the right to off your neighbor, should we all start shooting each other? You know, just because it's written down. So a civil right is something that's written down by another man or woman that we have granted a certain amount of authority to say certain things. Um, and it's been taken literally by the folks, you know.
Yeah. Uh,
We have to
it
follow.
kind of reminds me of I think there's I don't know who started it, but it was a conversation or maybe something I heard or something I read, but when the founders of the U.S., as far as the historical accounts go, that they were debating whether or not to actually have the amendments in there because some of them were saying people should know that they're free, so you don't have to really write it down. And then they're also going, well, maybe people won't realize that they are free, and though we should just make sure that there are rights that government can't encroach upon. And so that's kind of how it all started. And I think that could be true that actually happened. That they were just going,
Can you
why
say
should.
that again? Can you say that part again about
Yeah,
how they
so the founders
maybe
were discussing.
maybe they don't know they're free, right?
Was that?
So, the part about where the founder said maybe the folks don't know these rights, right? Meaning they don't know they're free,
Yeah, the
or
just natural rights, just natural law type of thing. And so it's just written down saying, hey, uh, things that shouldn't happen. You're free, so you shouldn't think that just because you're under this government that they can do whatever they want. And so they're debating about that. Is like, well, what about all the other freedoms that people know about, but that's not written? And they go, well, maybe the the legislators of the day or something will just expand on that, so people, when there is a problem regarding it.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that people created a position for another people to make
You're breaking up. Yeah. Hello?
Did you hear me?
You broke up, but start over.
Okay, let me ask you a question. The founding fathers, let's say, whatever that is, um, do we believe that people, because people created the government, right? So do we believe that people created certain positions of authority occupied by other people to make rules and regulations for the very same people that created those positions? Do we believe that?
I don't know. I, I don't know what I believe. I don't believe. I just have to say that
Do we think, like, would you, I'll bring it right up to front row, would you ever grant me the authority, you and put it on paper, say, Aaron, you have the authority to write rules that could govern my life and how I should act through my life and my
oh
family's
yeah,
life?
when you put it that way, no, of course not.
Fuck no, right?
And I'm pretty sure the founding fathers of that day, when they wrote it up, they weren't thinking of that, but somehow it happened. Somehow,
Well,
the people who got voted in power saying, "Hey, look, I got voted in to make legislation," and then people were like, "No, that's not what you do."
that's my point though, is the people at that time through written documents, right? Me and you are on the same page about that. We don't know if it's true now, it's not true, whatever, but we can read it. We can read all the arguments, and we can read all the historical texts. So we do know that a government was created.
hmm
Now, who or what was that government created to regulate? Do you think it was the people, or could it be
Yeah.
something else?
So I've always done past shows. I know you've joined me maybe like 5 shows ago. So I've got like almost 900, if not 1,000 videos. So a lot of that was to regulate the government. You know, people just kind of fail to realize that the Bill of Rights, the United States of America, the independence from England is just to when they made everything up is the people represent themselves, and they're the what the amendments and were for was to regulate the government, not to encroach on people's rights. And that's
But
what like
why was the government created? Well, if we were looking to get away from the government, the king, why would we just turn right back around and create this thing to regulate us? Which I'm telling you, maybe through innuendo, you get it. I'm saying it was not, and it's not intended to regulate us. But what was it in? It was formed. We have historical records of it.
hmm
What was intended to administrate or regulate? If
yeah,
it's not us, the people,
yeah,
then
look,
what?
the Constitution starts with we the people. It doesn't start with we
That's
the United States government.
right. Exactly. We, the people, do hereby create and create a let's just call it a government
More
to do a
perfect union.
certain thing.
Yeah.
And in the preamble, it does say to protect the life, liberty, property of Americans. That's what
hmm
it kind of says.
Yeah.
Just real paraphrasing.
And this stuff should be.
So
Sorry. Go ahead.
so if it wasn't meant to regulate you and me and to write rules for you and me about how to go to Walmart, how to basically live your life, but this thing is huge today, but it's not meant for you and me, who or what is it for?
I don't
It's
know.
clearly, if we read it, you've read it, you've read the documents, and you can read in there that no, it's not to regulate the very people that created it. I mean, what idiots! Why would you ever do that? Like, you would never let me create a position for me to regulate you, right?
Yep.
So why would we do it for someone else?
Yeah, we wouldn't. I think the stuff that we're discussing should have been really hampered down in our educational system. Of course, the educational system wouldn't allow that. um,
Mhm.
it's and what's funny is like everyone kind of knows it. They've done plays on it in school, and then when it's they don't realize how it's not being adhered to. And once they've kind of find out the hard way, they look back on it and it's like, hey, I thought we had these rights. It's like we do have those rights. It's just the government that was written, the founding fathers and all that stuff that was written, it's not adhered to anymore. So what are we living in? Which government are we living in?
Well, what if it was adhered to, but the people believed it applied to them? So we start um, submitting to it. What if what has been written has not changed, and the government, the positions are all doing what they should be doing? But I start walking into their office saying, "Oh, can I have permission to have a garage sale?" Right?
Mm-hmm. So,
If I start doing that, first of all, it definitely increases their power. Their feeling of power. Like, oh yeah,
yeah,
well, everyone should walk in and make sure they have a permit for a garage sale, right?
yeah. It's like it's funny because in the state of Nebraska, so what happened was I I witnessed, or there's two deer that were ran over on kind of a side road, like a farm road. I mean, it's not even paved over.
You
And
can't touch them.
hmm?
You can't touch them.
Well, yeah, the Nebraska, I guess, law states that you should obtain a permit in order to get the the deer in order to process it and take it home, etc. And I think so. I guess if you get a permit, you're gonna have to pay for it. And I think that's not all states do that, but I learned that Nebraska state has that.
Most states do. The game warden, the game parks and wildlife authority of states now is telling us that they control rabbits on your property.
Hmm.
They control all wildlife because they're gonna protect it, right? They have to protect, you know, our nature from us or for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't even,
You want to mount the head, like, holy crap, that's pretty cool. The antlers are still on. You just want to cut the head off and mount it. People like doing that stuff. That's almost a felony. That's a federal felony, I believe, right?
Mhm.
Because you touched what belongs to the government. It is their point of view. You know, where did that come from? Where did that freaking reality come from? I mean, you have to be kidding me. You almost can't. Well, you can shoot wildlife on your property, but only with a bow and arrow or a BB gun or something. Like, you can't use a hunting rifle, or like, what? Where did these regulations come from to regulate you and your property? And what if that deer was gonna be to feed your family? Well, they'd come and take it, and therefore you have no venison, right?
Yeah. Oh. Um.
So where did that come from? Is what I'm saying. That this idea that these people with badges and uh, big fancy white trucks that we pay for to come onto our property and tell us what to do,
Why would a people, you or me, why would we ever create that ever?
Yeah.
We wouldn't. So my point goes straight back to the beginning. I don't believe that's what was created. It has turned into that, you know,
Yeah.
due to our ignorance and stuff. But
I mean, we
but
know
what
it wasn't created even when we look back and look at the what they wrote. um so but it's just it's weird. I think it's a condition where people just fall in line and support authority even if the authority are doing wrong. And we're seeing that constantly, and there are a lot of protests that occur. I mean, but I think you do have to choose a side. Are you gonna just fall in line, support authority blindly, even if they're corrupt, even if you've been fighting against it all this time, or are you gonna, just kind of double down against it? Like, if the authorities are doubling down, then you just gotta double down twice as much. Otherwise, you've submitted, and it's almost to the point of
you
where it's reaching a crescendo, and if we just allow it, then we just submit it, and it just gets harder and harder to push back.
you used a great word there at the very beginning of what you're saying. You said it's a condition of the people, and there's another word for a condition. Let's say I have a cold, or I'm even feeling, let's say, depressed. That's one of my conditions, you know. And another word for a condition is a state, right? A state of mind, a
Mm-hmm.
state of being, a state. And think about the state of Nebraska. It's a condition that you are in if you are a resident there, if you're complying, you know, if you're doing all the stuff,
Yeah.
legal stuff. It's a condition.
Yeah, I mean, just think
Freaking
of the
condition.
absurdity. You're on like if you go to a state line, right? You're the line that like boundaries between two states. Like, for example,
Yeah.
say Iowa and Nebraska. It's like, wow, I take one step here on this line that doesn't exist, but there's a sign here that says, "Hey, welcome to Nebraska," or "Welcome to Iowa."
The
You
state
take
of Iowa.
Yeah, the state of Iowa, and you step on over, and you go, "Oh, I'm an entirely new jurisdiction over here." Oh wait, here we go. Ah, I'm an entirely new
Now
jurisdiction
that,
over here.
and you can dance back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is so funny in their world, because that's in the legal world. I don't want to say their world, but in the law world, there's a huge difference between Nebraska and Iowa just by stepping past that sign,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost ridiculous that 99% of this country still believes that that means something. And I'll give you a good example. I asked my dad one day. I go, "Hey, does that stop sign tell you what to do?" And he goes, "Absolutely." I'm like, well, then how come you continue moving? You know, once you roll up to that sign and you read it, it says stop. Why do you ever go? I don't see the go sign, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you have to make all these excuses about, well, you know, it's a a thing that we learn, blah 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 blah. But if that sign says something to you, which he said it did, it says stop, that means don't go. So I was asking him, well, why don't they put up a go sign? Like,
Yeah.
how do you know when to go? So wait a minute. So that one sign is just is a recommendation, basically, advice saying, hey, there's a four-way intersection here. Please stop, so that we don't have so many accidents at this intersection. Blah blah blah. And it's up to us, self-governing people, to realize when it's safe to move forward, right?
Yeah.
To keep going about our way. But when I brought that up to him, he wanted to almost defend the fact that that sign is necessary. You know, we have to have this, this sign here to tell us what to do. And I'm like, Dad, you know, and the same thing with the speed limit signs, state lines, rivers, river crossing signs. You know,
Yeah,
hey,
boundaries in water. You know what's funny? There's I don't, maybe it was, I don't know who it was. I have to look back and see who it was. Someone was talking about, isn't it interesting that we have, if you just look at within the states of the United States and the universities, why do we have two universities? One that has University of Washington or Washington State University. You know, there's a Nebraska, University of Nebraska, and there's Nebraska. There's probably like a Nebraska State or something. You know, I mean, not always, but most of the states have a university of that state, and then there's a, you know, the state, the university's name or the state's name, and then state. You know, I just
and actually on the maps you could even say that, like, it's in legal land it's called the state of Texas, but where I'm at, but in many other places it's called Texas State or Nebraska State or Iowa State, you know, instead of the state of Iowa. And you do have to go back to, what does the word of mean? It means belonging to, you know, like consisting of, like a loaf of bread. So it's a thing consisting of bread. Right? So state of Iowa is this thing consisting of Iowans, residents. Basically, it's an ownership type of thing when you say of, family of, you know, this or that. It's an ownership thing. So how it relates to universities, I haven't really thought about, but you're exactly right. There is always two conflicting things. And plus they do that, come on, Ivan, for propaganda, right? Oh, we have to, if we don't play football against another state, we have to play football against each other so the people will watch it and not worry about government, right?
Yeah, the distractions that are out there. And those a lot of the sports, you know, we're even seeing this now, is you've got to follow the rules, and if you speak out in some way, you're just going to be outed from it. And
I mean, banned, almost federally regulated.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't stand for the flag, gee whiz, you know, the national flag. I mean, come on. And but yet the cops can desecrate it every day with their, you know, black and white colors and a blue line across it. That's no big problem. But if I don't want to stand and cover my heart for an anthem and a flag, man, the people look down on you. I mean, it's almost worse than jail. You know, you're outcast.
And isn't it funny that, I mean, look, a lot of things that I go down through is just kind of like symbolism these days. And just think about it. When you cover something, you're blocking it. Like if you cover your eyes, you're preventing yourself from seeing. If you're covering your ears, you're preventing yourself from hearing. So if you're covering your heart, what are you preventing?
Ooh, good point. Never thought about it like that. Exactly.
So just something to think about.
I never thought about it like that. And, you know, that goes right back to religion, right? I think there are many pictures of Jesus with one hand over his heart, you know, covering something. Hey, that's pretty interesting. I think Travis might have a view on that.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about George Carlin, he thought that way, right? He, like, if you see some of his routines, he's like, so firefighters fight fire. So what do freedom fighters fight?
Exactly. The reverse, yeah, the reverse language. Language is cool, right? We know that. We're learning that, especially the law language. If you read the administrative code of Nebraska, all it is, it's a code, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and it's reverse written in certain respects, just like freedom fighters, firefighters, war on drugs, or, all the language that is used against us by this alleged government. It is always to twist your mind backwards, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
dude, it's freaking awesome. It's a it's a freaking awesome system. But once you can see it, you can realize it. You can talk to your friend Ebon about it, and what can you do about it except talk more, realize more, get more viewers, and try to be free. But what, like, what what else are we looking for when we say freedom? You know,
Excuse me. Yeah. Um. I mean, I was discussing this with Mia earlier today. We had kind of personal offline chat, um, and I wish I could remember everything about it. But like one of the things I was telling her, um, was how we've got certain movements and organizations or whatever it is, whether it's political or not, whether it's actual, like, for example, free Julian Assange. We want to free Julian Assange. Um, and people would put a lot of time and effort into that, in even money, and yet what we have are movements and organizations that support that, and it's an ongoing thing. It's like a money sink and a time sink, and like we want Julian Assange free. He's a whistleblower. He revealed corruption within anywhere where people whistleblowers are revealing the corruption. Same thing with Chelsea Manning, and we just want him out. Yet the establishment want to either keep them in prison forever or to have them killed. And you've got other entities like WikiLeaks that want him to be processed and processed out, but that's going to take forever, and that really depends on the legislators and people who are put in the court systems by said legislators. And it's just, no matter what, he's not going to go free. And the thing is, we've known from, excuse me, from a long time ago that they're eventually going to come for Julian Assange. He's not going to be safe in the embassy forever. He can't live there forever. So he either gets out, the people have to get him out safely, or the government's going to go ahead and take him. And then now, once the government has him, what's going to happen? Most likely, he's going to be extradited to the United States to be tried and prosecuted, etc., without due process, what have you. And we know that's coming, yet we don't have enough. I don't know. We don't have enough to get him out of that situation, and so, but we still, well, hold on, and then we still have a lot of movements where to just keep going, do the same thing that hasn't worked. It's like, I'm seeing this.
It's too late, right? Yeah. Let's say Julian Assange, his presence in our life was quite a while ago, 2010 something, and we got WikiLeaks and a lot of information. We had high profile, let's say, lawyers, just normal people like us, but with a profession, lawyers and activists, all with this information. What happened? What did we do? Nothing. We just sat there and watched the show.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we did, right?
Yeah. And
And
here's the thing too, is people will automatically call us violent when we're advocating that there's violence being done, and hey, you guys need to stop it. And they go, well, if you're going to try to stop us, that's violence. It's like, no, you guys are raping us, so we're going to prevent you from raping us. And the rapist is going, man, you
defense
guys.
is not violent.
Hmm?
Defense is not violence.
Yeah. Yeah, but the perception again, it's all about persuasion. It's about rhetoric. And it's always that standpoint, and then within every movement they go, oh no, we can't go out in mass and just break him out. And it's like, no, we're not breaking him out. He's coming out of his own volition. We're just making sure that the authorities don't take him. Whether it's the police or the
what I'm saying is, what did we do? That information, I remember sitting there for years, just watching the information roll out from WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. I remember when he got arrested. I remember when he fled to the embassy there in London.
Yeah, the Ecuadorian embassy.
But I didn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
I have the same information you do, and there's millions of the whole world has all that same information, apparently.
Yeah.
And what happened? Like, what did we do to help Julian himself? Did we stand up like the Million Man March in Hong Kong every single night for 3 months? No, we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
There have been certain rallies for Julian in the U.S., but look at London. Was there any people surrounding the Ecuadorian embassy, keeping the cops away, saying, free Julian? Did you ever see that? No. What? Well, then
They're protesters, but yeah, they when the police came, they just kind of probably just stepped aside or whatever. They weren't allowed to be there at that point. I mean, it is tough. I mean, it seems like we need numbers, just because if you don't have enough numbers to stand up, it's just they've got you.
And we have numbers. We have you, me, your neighbor, their neighbors, but knowledge or even
it's acting on knowledge. Like, we can have all the knowledge on the world, but if we don't act on it, what use is it?
Mm-hmm. Sit at home, watch TV.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that we've got a lot of movements that will never take that step to saying, hey, you guys keep doing the wrong thing, and you guys are abusing your positions of authority you don't have. That's the thing. That's the key words. Authority they don't have, and we're gonna put a stop to it. And if you use force, you guys are initiating the violence. You guys are always using force first.
Even though we're standing there with fences and pepper spray, guns, cannons, all this stuff. And also with the Hong Kong thing, if you watch American news or any probably news, it doesn't matter, across the world, except Hong Kong news.
Mm-hmm.
But it treats the folks who are walking down the street saying whatever they're saying. It treats them as disruptors, possibly getting violent.
Mm-hmm.
Just these they're using words that create in our mind that you and me shouldn't do that. We should not do that. That's chaos, right? Chaos. Order will be restored. So then they show the picture of the police, allegedly restoring order, standing there in Hong Kong.
And it's funny when you think about it, because you see pictures of all the protesters sitting down. It's like, wow, that's such a violent action over there.
Yeah.
Sitting down is a violent act.
Yeah. Sitting down eating noodles, Well, they might throw hot soup at the cops.
Yeah. But yeah, people are persuaded by what they see on the news and how they word things. I mean, people know if you ask them what does it mean when media makes spins something or politicians spin. They know all the tactics that are used within mainstream media and politics, but they're okay with it. They go, "Oh, it's necessary, I guess." Just like your father and the stop sign.
Yeah, you know, yeah, it's necessary. Well, hey, I'm okay with it being necessary, but that doesn't mean that it directly applies to how I live my life or Iban lives his life. There is no way in the world I could ever walk up to Iban who's fishing and say, "Hey, do you have permission to do that?" Unless it was on my land, right?
Hmm.
But in the ocean or on a lake
Yeah.
or something, like, do you have a sticker? Do you have the proper permission to be allegedly sitting on a boat and put a hook on a line? For Christ's sakes, you're. It's just so ridiculous. I can't
Yeah.
even explain it.
Yeah. I see a lot of videos where they go excuse me. Someone's just going fishing on a pond. It's not like it's on someone's like law like backyard or anything, and if you go in a body of water, that's supposedly not anyone's property. So they just took the wooded area. They got to the little pond and they started fishing. And then like someone goes, "Hey, you're not supposed to fish here." And I go, "I don't see any signs or anything."
No
Uh,
trespassing, no signs like that, no private property signs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, because most people would respect it. It's like, well, if you guys had a sign, maybe I'd probably just skip past it, but I didn't see a sign. And so, well, I'm gonna call. And then so the person goes, "Well, I'm gonna call the police." And the fisherman's going, "Why don't you go and call the police?"
Right. Go ahead and call them, dude. I'm like you're committing a crime sitting there in a boat, getting food.
Yeah.
And and these people, the guy who's alleged, obviously yelling at him from the shore, thinks that that's a crime.
Yeah.
You, I gotta call the local authorities to come get you.
Yep. And in some of these videos, they don't even go on call. They just stay there and argue and just keep repeating, saying, "You're here. You're trespassing. You got to get out of here. I'm gonna call the police." And the fisherman's going, "Dude, I'm not bothering you. There's no signs here indicating anything. If you want to call the police, call the police. And so just go and leave me alone." And I'm not even taking any fish. I'm just sports fishing. I'm just putting all the like some of them, most of them are just there to just sports fish. See what type of fish is in that water. You know.
What type? Yeah, exactly.
Um.
It almost comes down to the idea that our neighbor is more concerned with what we do than they are with the government and what they're doing,
Mhm.
right? I mean, so if I go to a pond and start fishing, like your example there, that guy walked out from probably watching mainstream news and just agreeing with everything on there, and then disagrees with what you're doing, and, and that's the problem, you know.
Mhm.
If we all can't live together without harming each other, the one thing we can't do is do something to someone else that we can't do to ourselves, right?
Mhm.
We cannot life, liberty, or property from someone else. Self-governing, that's all we are, we the people. And um, but these people have been, our neighbors have been so brainwashed that see something, say something, right? Oh,
Yeah.
the guy fishing. There's a guy walking down the street. He's suspicious. Some fucking bullshit. And that's why there's a huge increase in you've probably seen it in Columbus there, the police force. They probably added in the past 5 years 20 police, cars, everything, just manned up and full gear on the cars, license plate readers, cameras here, radars there, just looking for criminals. Oh, wait. They're looking for you. You're not a criminal.
Yeah. I mean, what it is it. This is what I always thought as when I was young. It's like if you're a doctor, your job is to that heal people. But isn't that like a job where you're putting yourself out of business? You know, it's like people who are dentists. You clean teeth, but if people clean their teeth, you'd be out of business. And so, do they ever do a job where they do enough, or maybe they make something else worse, like auto mechanics? You know, your car runs great for 5 years and then has a problem, so you take it to the shop, and then they go, "Oh, we fixed it up," and it's like the thing is, they're putting themselves out of the problem by fixing it, and then what happens is you got a different problem. It's like, I never had so many problems in 1 year, but I keep going to this auto shop, and then every time I go, something else happens. So you go to a different auto shop, and after that, you're good to go for 5 years, and you're just wondering, is that auto shop? Were they doing something to my car, fixing one thing and making something so I'd have to go in again?
Exactly. Hey, that's business, right? Business would, in my mind, always create a new problem to create more business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you just said, why not? Especially for profit or return. So let me ask one question: is the government, whether local, county, state, or federal, is the government a business? What do you think?
Yeah, of course it's a business.
Okay.
It's a business you can't opt out of.
And they keep cycling us right back into it. That's right.
We want to try to end your business with them. It's like the mob. It's like, no, you need protection money. You need us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you want to be free from us? Okay, so they'll say, okay, go ahead and vote, right? And then so you vote, and then you come right back down to the same circle of taxation, higher fees, all this crap. And then 3 years later, 2 years later, whatever vote cycle you're on, they'll just say, okay, go ahead and vote. So now you're free, right? Your freedom. Okay, here we go. And you come right back around. Same as the auto mechanic. He's cutting holes in your, hoses and all this stuff just to get you back.
But I'm not saying every shop or every dentist or doctor does that, but I'm pretty sure some people use that advantage. And same thing with politicians. I'm pretty sure there are some straight up legit politicians, especially that are local.
We guarantee it with politicians, right? We guarantee it with politicians. But with doctors and auto mechanics, we give them benefit of the doubt that maybe they try to do a good job. But politicians, it's a pure profit business.
Yeah,
pure profit.
At the big level, I would say. I think at the smaller level, like in Somerville, for example, there's things called aldermen. So within a city, there's a couple aldermen that kind of votes represents the people within the city, and it's not like a full-time job. It's like a small part-time job. It's still a lot of work, and you only get paid like a part-time salary. That's not even that much. So I think when you're there, some people I'm sure use it as a stepping stone to go up into a higher level of politics, but most of the people there just care about the community that they live in and just want to make sure that everyone's represented. And they like that. They like being involved within the community and talking to people and saying, hey, we shouldn't let these big city councilors dictate what's allowed and what's not allowed. We should have the community, the people, decide whether they want that or not. And we need to stop.
Have you ever looked up citizen oversight? Right, because the people who pay taxes, who pay all these people, are the oversight of how that government is acting. where they're spending the money that the city makes on sales tax and all, property tax, all this stuff. If you look up citizen oversight, who's the oversight of the government, you won't find anything.
Yeah. And that was supposed to be around during our era, right?
Yeah, there's a couple fake groups, but they're consistent of elected members. They're elected and part of the government itself. It's like it's its own internal oversight.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It's all internal, or if you do any investigation on it, which you're not supposed to, I guess, they go, hey, that's invasion of privacy. You just realize that, hey, they're linked to these corporations that pay a lot of money into the candidates, and it's like, look, corporations are giving a lot of money to these candidates, and these citizens who are looking at political or oversight, they work for that corporation.
I think it was about the 1970s. You and your listeners might have to correct me. Is when political donations could not be done by corporations. I'm just speaking.
Yeah, political action committees. Right now they have.
And so,
go ahead.
Ever since then, the large, let's say Walmart, they're sitting on $450 billion. Do you think they're not going to try to influence what politician writes new legislation for commercial business? Mm-hmm. You got to be kidding me, right? Of course they're going to. And so the law was changed to create Walmart as a person, right? Have you heard that?
Oh yeah, corporations are people.
Corporations are fucking. They're on par with you and me. God created man, woman, blood, flesh, breathing things, but yet Walmart, a name on the side of a building, is the same as you and me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what the government has come to, which is.
And I keep telling people, or I keep asking people, really, because look, I never dived much into politics. I just kind of understood it a lot, and 2016 I got more involved. Is legislators put legislation out there to put money in politics, where they can get as much money as possible. Corporations can put into the political system. And
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have to reveal that where their money, how much money they put in or who they gave it to, etc. And people are going, well, the answer to that is get money out of politics. And it's like, okay, so how do you get money out of politics? Well, we vote for people who want to get money out of politics. But then it's like the catch-22. There's already money in politics. And if you're trying to get money out of politics to get politicians in, you still can't do that because there's still money in politics. And what are you going to do? Force the people who wrote the legislation and passed it to unwrite that legislation? It's like they wrote it up in the first place.
Exactly.
And then if you expect to vote them out, it's like, how? I mean, in 2016, the incumbent re-election rate was at 92 and 96%, even though the polls had the favorability rate of Congress at 11%. So is it going to be that is there something wrong with the voting system, the election system? What is it? But people keep voting them in. So what's the point of these favorability polls when it doesn't change anything as far as who stays as a representative or senator?
Yeah, the people just keep running to the polls to continue putting other people in positions to continue the slavery, let's say, the taxes, the regulation, the administration. And my neighbor, I mean, that's during election time, there's signs in every single yard. Everybody's just so proud of the freedom we have to go vote for a master. And it just irks me so bad because they don't realize what they're doing. You know, if,
Yeah, and I think it's I think we saw in the 2000s and onward that politics has become a reality TV show, and that kind of explains the rise of Donald Trump. And
Mhm.
people spend a lot of time involved in politics, getting involved in say was it the ground up type of um, um,
Grassroots.
grassroots, yeah, type of stuff, that type of thing, protests or organizations, and in the end it's still being, yeah, you're still being you're dictating someone else to control what you can and can't do. Yet people are so involved in it, they don't think past it. They just think hey, maybe we'll find a good master. Master that tells the truth, and once they get in office, does exactly everything that
Yeah.
they said they would do. You know, like people who love Donald Trump. It's like he said a lot of things. He's not doing them. He's doing a lot of things you don't like.
I,
That and he's
I say,
and you're still
yeah, I
supporting
say
him.
we. Yeah, exactly. I say we the people who have the right to change the Bill of Rights, amendment stuff. We should write an amendment that says that every politician for election or re-election needs to hold the sign that says how much they're going to take from our paycheck, right? So this guy will say, well, I'm only going to take 28% of your paycheck. Vote for me. And the next guy's like, well, I'm only going to take 25%. Vote for me and see how many people vote for them,
That's a good one.
right? That will be the hopefully the mind changer for folks. But
Yeah, but
that's never talked about.
yeah, but I mean, politicians will just get to the point that they'll just put the 0% sign up there, and people will
Yeah,
go, "Hey, like
exactly.
0%, let's vote for him." And the next thing you know, it's
Yeah,
like at
and then
38%.
they'll change the law and be like, whoa, shit, there was a change in law. Not my fault. I tried to fight it.
Yeah, and it's funny because um no like excuse me. So if Americans voted in our congressperson, or even the president, because that's what all they could do. Now, if they're corrupt or if they lied during their campaign show of what they're going to do, there's no accountability. You have to wait for their term to be up. The only way they can get out of there is to be voted out by members of Congress. So
Yep.
It's out of the Americans' hands to keep people in Congress accountable. Who makes people who's accountable, or who can make accountable people within Congress? Congress.
Exactly. There is absolutely no oversight. Zero oversight.
Yeah.
Except your dollar and my dollar, right? And by that I mean the people. If we were to take away our dollars and say, you know what, F this. I want 100% of my paycheck every week, not 60. Um, there would be something would happen. Let's just say something would happen. But the people believe that paying taxes and flying their flags, it's patriotic, and you have to support everything that the government through the news tells us. We're doing good things. We're saving the world, by the way. That's where our dollar's going. And it doesn't go to $1 million golf courses for the president or
Yeah.
private islands for pedos. It doesn't go for that. Yeah. So if we take away money
me.
talks, right? We've heard that saying before. Money talks, but nobody will do it. They won't do it. My parents won't do it. They're kind of awoke. They understand that there's probably a problem now with the overarching, unregulated, no oversight government, but they've been in it so long that they're happy.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. That's the inherent um, consequence of the system. Okay, the system is set up that you need to save. The more you save, the sooner you can retire. Um, but the thing is, if you're so invested in the system, when you have enough to save, you realize, well, you've already invested into the system by now saving, and well, if you go against the system, well, all that saving was lost, right? So you go to school, you graduate from high school, you're 18. Say you take a 4-year college, you're 22. Say you take extended college, you're 24. Say you go to graduate school, you're 28. Maybe you're out in the working area, pay off your debts by the time you're 38, and you start saving up. You're 48. You got 10 years of savings, and then you're like, yeah, the system sucks, but I just spent 30 years, or no, wait, 20 years getting to this point, and I don't want to just that the system is shut down, because now I'd start all over again. This time I'm 48, and I don't have another 20 years to get going in a new system. So a lot of people, I think the mentality is set at that point.
Once you pay off the schooling real quick, then you acquire another 500,000 in mortgage debt. So okay, continue.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way the system is set up. In ways, it's kind of genius, because people realize even if they hate the system, they've already invested so much of their time and energy with working within the system that they go, might as well just go all the way, right?
Yeah.
They go, I'll just work another 20 years, save up for my retirement, retire, and then maybe I'll change the system. But then there's like, well, if you didn't want to change the system when you had a chance, and you just invested 40 years into it, what makes you think other people are going to want to just stop at their 20-year mark? They're not. It's like, why didn't you change it instead of going through this along with the system to retirement? It's like, why should I listen to you? And it's like, well, I'm old now. I'm wiser. It's like, let's just all stop what we're doing and just think about it for a bit.
They can't, right? That media is just way too powerful. It really is. Even shows, I don't have TV, don't watch TV, but I have. And the last couple shows I watched was, How I Met Your Mother and Big Bang, and I didn't watch it religiously, just turned it on for some background noise. And, man, the innuendos there, like, you need a license, or, voting time, or just all the things that support the system.
Yeah.
Police are here, be quiet, or whatever was said. It's just so strong, and I don't blame my neighbor or our neighbors for their condition, their state, the state they live in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all there.
They don't understand what they're doing to guys like me and you, who are looking outside the box, saying, wait, that's not how it's supposed to be. And it's actually not written that way. The law is written correctly. The law says we are free people, and we are not the regulated ones. It's not you and me.
Yeah.
But I do have the option to go to an office and get a license if I wish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when everyone does that, then it becomes the norm, becomes reality. And we're in a state where now then the police are also in the same position where they believe all that. So if you don't have a license, let's say driver's license or something, they're just like, you have to. The people believe that you have to have a license, for Christ's sake. And they just judge you on the side of the road, even though you're going to church. There was no accident. There was no harm, damage. I didn't run over an old lady or nothing. It's just simple paperwork issues. Kind of goes back to Nazi Germany, where people were judged and prosecuted for paperwork issues.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What can we expect from our politicians? I mean, it feels like for you and me, we could pretty much predict what's going to happen. You
Yeah.
know. But people out there are going to go, no, it's not going to happen. We're going to this time we're going to win. We're going
to change it.
we're going to change it. We're going to reverse all this bad legislation that they've had, and finally we'll get people in. And then it's like, so how did that work for you in 2016? Oh, well, it didn't work then. Well, what about in 2012? Well, it didn't work then.
Wall. Yeah, we're gonna make Mexico pay for it.
Mm-hmm. And
That's it.
yeah, I mean, that's what's funny about the show that's going on with the 2020 election with Trump. It's like all this other stuff you could talk about. All it is about against Trump or for Trump. Not necessarily anything that's being done to help the people, and it's
just whether you like him or not, right?
Yep. I mean, it's like why don't we talk about like his policies? How about that? Isn't that what we vote him in for? They go, no. You're either with him or you're with her or with the corrupt. It's like no, let's talk about the policies. We think they're all corrupt, but let's just say if they're not corrupt. Let's look at their history with their policies. Mm-hmm. And it's like, do you support Donald Trump's support of Israel and the amount of money he's giving them? A lot more than the past two presidents combined, or whatever. And they're gonna be like, "That's not happening." It's like, no, it is happening. Even Trump admits it. Just look at his videos. They go, "Well, he's playing 4D chess."
Yeah, exactly. Continuous moving that you cannot follow, right?
Yeah.
Do you support Donald Trump and the amount of taxes he's taking out of your paycheck every month? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What if we said that?
Yeah.
Or what if that was on the platform? Of course. Well, it is because Donald Trump says he's gonna cut that down. Right? He's gonna reduce the amount of money that's being stolen out of my paycheck every single day. Mm-hmm. Right? Instead of working 3 hours a day for free, out of 8, I only have to work 2.75. Yes.
Remember in 2016, he said he's just going to make the tax I forgot what he called it. It was going to be simple. It was just going to be 3 tiers. I think he said something like that. It's the same tiers. It's just pre-adjusted. And it's like, nope, he didn't even follow through on that. He said, look, we're going to make it simple. And people, it's just funny. And people know and here's the thing is like, I'm starting to really get angry at the libertarians who they know that they don't trust Donald Trump, they don't trust Republicans, yet they vote them in all the time instead of voting within their own party. It's like, why are you even libertarian if you're just going to keep voting for the Republicans?
Because we can't let the Democrats win, right, Ebon? So we have to, if we know we're not going to win, then we're going to have to go for the opposing candidate. Right?
Yeah, and I'm going, so why are you even libertarian?
Exactly. Because we know we're not going to win, right? Oh, because we don't have enough support. There's a ton of, let's say, libertarian support out there. Mm-hmm. However, the system it's a 2-party system. Okay? Yeah. Yes, candidates. I mean, Mickey Mouse has been on the ballot, right? Mm-hmm. But only the race only goes against 2 people, and so the libertarians. And I hate to use that word because it's just folks who want freedom of government. That's what I want. I want freedom from government as it's written. It should be that way. Mm-hmm. However, even the libertarians are fighting for certain laws and regulations, but it would just be their way of doing it.
Yeah. What's funny to me is everyone remembers the Tea Party, Boston Tea Party, right? Even the Tea Party, the current Tea Party, they named themselves after that. And the biggest saying that everyone remembers is no taxation without representation, right? Mm-hmm. And that was just got the big moment. The reason why they had the pouring over the tea over Boston Harbor, and kind of leading up to a lot of protests against England at that time. And now, if you ask anyone this, do you have taxation with representation, or do you have taxation without representation? And if they say, yeah, we have taxation with representation, okay, so what are you paying taxes for that you want, like,
Yeah, what are you fighting about? Yeah, what are you fighting about? You have representation for your taxation that you must be happy with, apparently.
Yeah.
Right? Every government position, seat, is a representative position. You know, the president represents this thing called the United States. You know, your governor represents this thing called your state. It's just a representation position.
Mm-hmm.
The Tea Party thing was just so funny watching it, because it was just, in my mind, a media movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just something to get folks to watch more TV, basically. Because in the end, like with Julian Assange, nobody stood up. Nobody did anything. We all just sat back and watched the show. And then we sit here on shows like yours, me and you. We're not complaining. We're actually discussing it. But they sit back on shows and complain about it. They're just like, oh, man, fuck that. You know, that's fucking bullshit. Well, what did you do? I mean, you had the opportunity, you know, to do something. But
Well, so a lot of people have done something, but again, that if as long as we're relying on movement leaders who state this is what we won't do to save this person, then we've already limited our options, and we've already played all our cards. For example, if think of the the Wild West, okay? You know, when people carried guns and they'd play cards, and it's like you show up to a gunfight without a gun, you already know you could do whatever you want to that fella, because you got the guns, you could just shoot him. But now if they carry a gun, you know that, hey, you might have to actually like haggle or bargain or whatever, and you can't just force him because you have a gun and he doesn't. It's like, hey, I don't want to get shot. He's got a gun. I've got a gun. Yeah, I might win, but I might not. Why don't we just negotiate? But if you start at the negotiating table saying, we're not going to do this if you say no, but we want you to say yes, and so at that point they're going to say, well, we're going to say no. And then you go, okay, well, we're not going to do anything else. So I guess we lost. You've already lost.
And at that point, the gun becomes the law, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so with when we do have a standing army around here, I mean, a cop shows up to a traffic stop loaded with a 40 caliber, 3 clip rounds, you know, just mace, handcuffs, batons, weapons to disable a guy who didn't use his blinker. You know,
Yeah.
That becomes the law. It's court on the side of the road by perceived death. I mean, gee whiz, if you say one wrong word, you're getting ripped out of that car. You're getting, you know. And so, yes, your analogy is very good with the Wild Wild West. It's exactly what it is today.
Yeah, and that's what gets me, is like someone who owns a gun is violent. It's like, no, if we own a gun and we were violent, we would have used it in a violent means. So basically, all the people who are in the United States and are gun owners, they're not violent people, because if they were violent people, they would have used the guns in violent means already. So what you have are peaceful people with guns. That's a good thing, because that prevents people who have guns that are violent, especially in authority, from becoming violent. Otherwise, we get a lot of this stuff that's happening across other countries. And what I like to point out is like, okay, so we're gonna go against face the government, people with guns, and it's like, hey, if the people with guns going against government were violent, they would already started their violence. So what they're using their guns for is a negotiating tactic, saying, hey, we don't want to use these weapons, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to use your weapons either. Now, what we want is corruption out of our town, our county, whatever, and we want to maintain election integrity. We're here to watch, make sure everything goes down as it is. We're counting the exit polls, etc. If you want to use the voting system, but basically it's like, hey, the people here, we're not standing for it. We're not violent, because otherwise we would use our guns in violent means. So stop saying we're violent. This is a negotiating tactic where, hey, at the end of the day, are you going to fight us? And are we going to have to fight you? And just so you can maintain the status quo of power over us.
You're talking about your neighbor who is a policeman, who would probably side with the system at a point of, and I'll use this term loosely, revolution, or, people standing up, gun owners, standing up. And so that's crazy to think about. He would actually walk out of his front door, go to one side, and you walk out of and you know each other. You've had barbecues together. You respect his profession. Yeah. You're not a lawbreaker. You're good people. And he's going to go over on the other side of the street and turn his weapon, which was paid for by you, back on you.
Yep.
To say, comply. You better comply. Right?
Yep.
Man, that's scary. That's super scary. And I don't know if it'll happen. I'm not labeling all neighbor police officers that would do that. Maybe most wouldn't, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, there's only... If you really think about it, there's only a few police officers per town. Or even city. They don't even make a 0.0001% of the population. So if you even get 1% of the population in town coming out speaking against it, police are already outnumbered, and they're not gonna go against the people, especially when they're underwhelmed. They'd have to call in, say, National Guard.
What about returning soldiers? Yeah, returning soldiers in these fake wars who are already heated. They couldn't find the terrorist that was over there, and so now they're brought back and they're put on meds and they're kind of trained that America is under threat of terrorism.
Well, the thing is, there are a lot of ex-military people who are like us, but they're also peaceful people like us. They're not violent, right? Because when people keep saying, hey, this ex-militant person is saying we should pick up our arms and get corruption out of our government, these people are violent. It's like, no, we're not violent. If we were violent, we would have we would have done violent acts already. We haven't. But you know who is violent? You know who has done violent acts? Have you looked at the government lately? So what we want is for the end of violence. And, hey, if you want to lie, that's fine. If you want to lie about us, that's fine. We're going to call you out on it too. But yeah, you're not, we're free people. We're going to actually get corruption out. Isn't that what you want? We were going to get the violent people out. Isn't that what you want? And then we're just going to go along and live our way the way we've been doing. Just leave us alone.
There's a theory, though, Ivan, that says, let's say we route out the corruption here in this system. You've heard the term power vacuum, Something or someone else will occupy a position, if not that exact position.
They like power. There's a lot of quotes on that, like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. And Frank Herbert, a sci-fi writer I like, also takes it another step, saying power corrupts. Power doesn't corrupt. I'm probably botching it, but he's saying in lines like power doesn't corrupt, but people who are corrupt are attracted to power. Like only corrupt people want power, right? Exactly. People who aren't corrupt, they don't want power. Do do honest people want to deal with all the legislative stuff they have to do every day? It's like, no, I would rather work at Burger King, go fishing afterwards. You know, it's like, that's simple. You know, I could just mess around and talk, and like, I don't have to deal with paperwork. I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to manage the town.
Yeah.
But hey, people.
And is there a need to manage the town?
Yeah, I know, that's another thing. I mean, the town will
That's a
pretty
question.
much have someone saying, "Hey, you know, we could probably get all the
And-
garbage. You know,
And
we
how
don't
would
want."
that someone? How would that someone be appointed? So even after we route out the corruption,
Mhm.
would an election process still be like? Would it be the same way? You know, that we already know doesn't work, and you can go back through history. It doesn't freaking work when
Mhm.
you know when the folks pick people to be in positions of power. All your quotes you just said hold absolutely true.
Well, the thing is, I think we just have to leave it up for these communities to figure that out on their own. You know, right
Yeah.
now it's always just the one system that we have, and that one system we know has faults, but we don't change that one system because it has to start from the top down. It won't go from the people on up, and so they can't change the system. There are
I say
there are. I'm just gonna
go
say
ahead.
that there are outliers within certain towns, and they have changed the way the system works. And I don't know exactly how well or didn't not so well they went, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I would like to see someday in my lifetime, possibly, or my child's, what's called a people oversight system. Not elected, but you know, gathered together. I mean, people go to church throughout all the towns and cities and say, "Hey, would you like to be an oversight for a thing we're going to create called the government to oversee the city, manage funds, manage roads, you know, manage all this stuff. But there has to be an oversight."
Mhm.
And I would like to see the people stand up and say, you know, have you ever been to a town meeting where you see all the fucking, you know, city people sitting there and they're sitting above you, and all the people are sitting down there and they're talking down to you. Well, I want another bench up higher, you know, of good folks in the town, just watching how these city managers, quotes, you know, act, spend money. We can review the records. We can just, you know what I mean by oversight.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Just something like that.
I mean, that's
And
kind of what
these
it's kind of what judges.
citizens are not paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like what judges are were supposed to be. They're supposed to be mediators to make sure that things are accounted for. You know, we do that with corporations with money. You know, there are accountants. There are where are those people who make sure that everything that's written down is auditors. You know, all of that stuff occurs in corporations with money, but it doesn't seem to happen.
By the way, private auditors, you know, third party, not connected to the corporation, but, you know, sending private auditors.
Well, the private auditors were corporations are make sure that when the third party auditors inspect everything, that the internal auditors didn't miss anything, so they don't get fined, type of thing. But yeah, it's kind of the same concept. Is you can have internal auditors, which is a good thing, and then you have the external, you know, the people who make sure that it's all accounted for. And hey, if the internal auditor is doing a good job, it's everything that the people who are the third party, they line it up and they go, okay, yeah, everything looks legit. Give that paperwork to the people.
With a 2-tier, 3-tier, 5-tier system of accountability, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what the kind of the idea was with the three factions within the government as far as the federal level. You know, checks and balances. You hear that term all the time in history book with schools. But those we don't have checks and balances anymore. And also in state of Massachusetts. What's funny is I covered this, maybe it was 2 years ago or a year ago, that the state legislators were able to vote for their own pay raise.
Exactly.
It's like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to
Hey,
vote for your own pay raise?
Do you think they petitioned for that though from the outside voters? Let's say the resident voters. Do you think they said, "Hey, I'm looking for a 5% increase"? No, it was all internal.
Yeah,
right.
I'm pretty sure they didn't say that while they're running that they get elected. They're gonna vote for a pay raise.
Increase my pay. Vote for me. Increase my pay.
Yeah. And then there's a little outcry about it from the people, and then it's like, well, the people don't have the power to reverse that, right? They're going to get that pay until they're probably voted out. But
yeah.
People had no say.
Yeah, private policy, absolutely.
Yeah.
They get to vote for that because there's no oversight.
Yep, no oversight. Oh well. We're reaching the 2-hour mark, and it's just been us two. But if anybody want to come on in and talk, I could extend it, but I think I might cut it short in about 7 minutes.
It's up to them. You know, we've been kind of hogging the show, but I think we covered some pretty cool topics.
Yeah. I mean, I think politics, even though we don't like it, it's a good thing just to keep involved and talk about it and just probably mention some points that people overlook or they just maybe didn't even notice. And of course, there's not many people who watch, but still, I think it's necessary, even if it's someone with 8 people watching, you know, saying it. Maybe they'll mention it to someone else and say, hey, this person said this. And they go, who's that? It's like, I don't know, but they're saying this. And they go, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I didn't notice that either. You know, it's like the whole word of mouth. You know how certain movies that are really good, they have like, they maybe had one trailer that showed and that's all that they had for a budget. And then, but the thing is, the movie was so good, people just talk to each other about it saying, hey, you should go see this. It's like, what is that? It's a movie. Just watch it. I think you're going to really like it. And so basically it's word of mouth advertising. Yep. And eventually it gets out there. And I think, hey, it started from just someone saying something. It didn't matter if it was someone with like 4.5 million views saying something, but it's just someone who's just kind of saying things a different way. And, you know, if
I liked you from the beginning because the first time I watched your show, actually it was a year ago or something. You know, I've heard your name, but then just recently, let's say last week, you know, when I came on the first time, I just sat there and listened, and there was like 0 watchers, right? But you were still giving your point. You were just like, you know what, F it. I'm gonna put my word out there. I'm gonna speak out, and you know, and people will come. Build it, they will come.
Yeah. Oh, hey, we got someone else. Ryan. Oh my goodness, Ryan. He's the Aussie. He's an Aussie from down under.
Oh no.
He hasn't been here in a long time. How you doing, Ryan?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. That sexy voice of yours.
I can't. I'm an all black. I'm all blacks. You know what that means, Kim?
Yeah, it's a rugby team in.
It's a rugby reference.
In New Zealand.
Yeah. Ryan, why can't we see you? I want to see your 88 pounds lighter self.
Camera's broken.
Oh, come on. Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Use your phone.
I'm not using my phone.
Oh, come on.
That's bad. That's bad. No, but I think you're both wrong. I think
Okay.
you both really go for Hillary Clinton. There's just no excuse for not going for Hillary Clinton.
Oh, Ryan Bannock loves Hillary Clinton. No, we're being sarcastic.
Mm-hmm. Very
No,
sarcastic.
I agree. I'm gonna vote. Okay.
Although
'Cause Ryan said so.
I do have a case about for voting for Hillary Clinton. I think I'm starting to get to the point where let's vote the worst in, and let's just see it crumble down fast. You know, it's like they want us to choose the what is it, the lesser of two evils. Let's vote the more of two evils. Let's just see it just start them just lighting themselves on fire.
Tim, I have a better idea. Because we're both Americans and we pay taxes, we're going to import Hillary Clinton over to Aussie land and let Ryan deal with it. We're just gonna
we got our own
we're
problems.
gonna pay for we're gonna pay for it.
We've got our own problems. We don't need that shit.
All right.
We've got our Prime Minister. Get this, our Prime Minister went to the Pacific meeting, so it's like Tonga, Fiji, New Zealand, and a whole heap of Pacific islands. Right, the Tongan Prime Minister broke down over climate change. Right, like literally broke down, started crying. So the Prime Minister called the meeting off. Our Prime Minister called the meeting off.
Oh, like I wanted a update on how things were going within the political system in Australia. How has things changed? I don't think we've talked for like a year.
It comes down to emotions, apparently.
Dude, they voted in. So our Democrats basically is called the Labor Party. During the GFC and after the GFC, were ranked number one in the world for economic and surviving the GFC. Didn't put us in massive amounts of debt either. I think they put us in $300 and something billion worth of debt, which to Australia is quite a bit of money, I guess. But I mean, when you think about Obama bailed out Wall Street to the tune of what, $8 trillion. It's a spit in the bucket. So anyway, and there was some problems with the problem with Australia during that time is that we're a parliamentary system, so the party can actually vote out the Prime Minister if they feel that the Prime Minister's not doing a good job.
Kind of like congressional. Congress can
not even simpler than that. They can just call a meeting, say we're having a ballot, and just basically vote in just within the party. So we vote for parties. We don't actually vote for like Donald Trump. We would vote for the Republican Party. So and then the Republican Party would put forward their leader. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we went through some turmoil between 2000. So the Labor Party got voted in 2007, and then GFC happened in 2008. The Labor Party got us through that. The Treasurer at the time, he got awarded one of the best, like the highest ranked awards for treasurers around the world. So people who deal with the money within the government. So he got awarded that. He's one of two Australians to have ever been awarded that, and they're both Labor. So no Conservative in Australia has been awarded that honour. Anyway, so the Labor Party, Kevin Rudd, the Labor Party deposed him. Julia Gillard, first female Prime Minister, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and then it went back to Kevin Rudd when Julia Gillard got deposed. In 2013, Australia had enough of Labor's bullshit and their infighting, voted them out, brought back in a Conservative government with the worst Prime Ministers we've ever had. Like, he's hands down the worst Prime Minister. right? He was on about how Labor was unstable, changing prime ministers. Same thing happened to him within his party. He got deposed. So the next prime minister comes in and wins the next election in 2016. So we have elections every 3 years. 2016, he wins it like if he wasn't circumcised, he would have lost. So anyway,
Hey Ryan, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
My name's Aaron from America. You've mentioned a lot of prime ministers coming in. So when the people y'all vote in a parliament, they get to pick their leader, and so they can vote them in and out as freely as they want. Okay, so let's say within 4 years.
Back in those days they could, but they can't now. But back in those days they could.
Okay.
It's party rules, so it's the way that and it runs the same in England and it runs the same in Canada, where we vote for a party. We're not voting for an individual.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're voting for Kevin Rudd to be Prime Minister, and the only way you can get him out is to go to the Parliament and,
Sure.
or impeach him. We don't have impeachments.
Yeah.
So anyway, so in comes the guy who was supposed to implement the best internet in the world, and he fucked it up.
Dude, you got a problem.
Then, just 9 months before the last election, like when was the last election? May this year. He gets deposed, and a new prime minister steps in. So,
but you guys have no say on that PM, right?
No. Okay. No, the party picks the PM. Gotcha. The party. So, like I said, we vote for the party. The party votes for their leader, and their leader becomes prime minister.
Understood.
Which I think is a shitty system, but what can you do? We're the arse end of Britain. So
I'm getting petitioning Hillary Clinton to join the Labour Party in Australia.
Oh fuck! That's the last thing they need, dude. They lost. They lost.
Yeah,
They lost the unlosable election in May, dude.
Really?
I'm telling you. Yeah, Labour should have shat that fucking shit in. Like, everybody was like,
how do they pick these people though? Right? Are they bankers or just?
Yeah. Bankers, lawyers, people in business. It's the same as Americans, mate.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about who you know, not what you know. People who were loyalists to the party, people who have been members of the party. Like if you look at the political parties, it's the same in America. They're like little unions, and they all fight for their own little ideology type thing.
Status.
Yeah. So anyway, Australia went into this election thinking, we're gonna Labor's gonna romp this shit in. Labor's gonna shit all over the Liberal. And get this, the Conservative Party is called the Liberal Party.
Mm-hmm.
How does that fucking make sense?
No, because listen, you don't understand. Okay, in legal language, if you are conservative, you are very liberal. Okay, read up on how they write the legal language. Okay, Ryan?
Yeah, but we're not all lawyers and shit, so it's like trying to sell a shit sandwich. You know what I mean? It may be legal lingo in selling it's a shit sandwich, but it's still a shit sandwich at the end of the day. So they, like I said, they went into this election. It was unlosable. It was Labor should have kicked ass, and they got fucking stomped. The Liberal Party thought they were going to get their ass kicked so fucking bad that they didn't even release any policies.
That's just so funny.
All they did was go on the attack. That's all they did. It's like Labor would release a policy, the Liberals would come out and attack it.
Yeah, they would say that how bad the Liberal policy is going to be. You know, right.
Things like the Labor Party was like the Labor Party is quite environmentally friendly, whereas obviously the Liberal Party is not. So the Labor Party came out and said by 2030 we want to be only producing electric vehicles in Australia, like selling electric vehicles. So what did the Liberal Party do? They went out, got all the tradies upset, saying the Liberal Party wants to sell you inferior electric vehicles to run your business that aren't powerful enough to pull your equipment around when you go to do jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
So that upset all the tradies, all the tradesmen.
Mm-hmm.
And they went on an absolute media blitz. But let's not forget, we have the same thing here in Australia as what you do with Rupert Murdoch in America. You've got one TV station that just will not relent on talking bullshit about leftist ideology.
Yeah.
And will make up lies, blatant lies, to get the Liberal Party over. Then you've got a billionaire who purposely went out and who owes his. Let me try and think. He had a nickel mine in Queensland, and he owes something like $7 million in unpaid entitlements for employees and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He spent $80 million on a campaign against the Labor Party.
Mm-hmm. That's what me and Ebon were kind of talking about, was funding for these people that are supposedly in positions of power. You know,
it's just corrupt. It's just incredibly corrupt.
But it's blatant too, right, Ryan?
Yeah. It smacks you right in the face.
Yeah, but the people, your neighbor, can't quite see it. Or if they do see it, they're looking at the other side, saying,
Mm-hmm.
well, I disagree with what you say about the political party, the system. But the whole thing is corrupt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting here arguing about one corrupt system, but two different people arguing about it. And it just perpetuates the problem, because
I'm a big believer that there should be no money in politics at all.
Absolutely.
Like, nobody should be enriching themselves by being in politics. This is how bad the Liberal Party thought that they were going to lose. I think it was 6 or 7 of their highest ranking politicians that were ministers, so secretaries basically, quit, resigned,
Mm-hmm.
retired, right? 2 of them went to work straight for companies that lobbied the government
Mm-hmm.
for contracts.
Yep.
One was the minister of defense went and took a job with a defense contractor.
No way. They don't do that type of stuff, Ryan, in politics. Just kidding.
Ebon and me just asked the question, is government a business? And we both agreed that yes, it was. And when government becomes a business, then it's no longer a government. It's a fucking business.
Yeah.
It feeds off
It's business for these people. It's
Yeah.
it's a stepping stone to wealth. You know what I mean? To extraordinary wealth.
Extraordinary.
And like our prime minister gets, what is it, $550,000 a year, so $500,000.
Obama bailed out $8 trillion to
Yeah.
somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I know, but like this is like personally goes straight into his pocket, right? So
Yeah.
we have a thing called New Start, which is the welfare system, like when you're unemployed, so unemployment benefit,
Yeah.
right? It's what is it? It's something like $270 a week to live
Wow.
on,
That's amazing.
right? That's Australian. So when you convert it, it's around about 200 US.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then when they got elected, it was like three weeks before the end of, like, so basically what happens in Australia at the end of the financial year is June 31st. I think it is June 31st is the end of the financial year, and that's when everything clicks over. So pay raises and all that. The government, that's what the date that the government uses to do most of their legislative changes. So halfway through the year.
Yeah.
So
midwinter.
Well, yeah, midwinter for us.
Yeah.
So it was a big election thing. It's like people on New Start are suffering, mental health issues, all these other types of stuff, because they can't even afford to buy food. They can't afford rent. You're getting $270 a week in New Start, and your rent is $450 a week. That doesn't make sense. So, and then on the 1st of January, every politician in federal parliament got a pay rise.
Can I cut you off? And I hate to do this.
Yeah.
You're a good speaker, but so that USEC payment to folks, 200 US, or sorry,
Yep.
Australian dollars a week, right?
Yep.
Okay. How much is taken out of your paycheck every week? Let's just say it's $50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's probably more. Imagine that disequilibrium there, where 4 of your neighbors could take care of that gentleman, Mrs., whoever, who needs help by donating $50 or more. So 8 of your neighbors, like a small community, would give them twice as much. Just 8 of you. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you don't know Ryan's neighbors, at least one of his neighbors. But go ahead, sorry.
So my problem is that you've got a government who is willing to enrich themselves and everybody around them, but when it comes to having people get the fundamentals of life, the basics of life, and refuses to give it to them, because they should be bootstrapping. Our prime minister has a saying: if you have a go, you'll get a go. Right? So you think, okay, yeah, that's not a bad saying. If you have a go, hang on. There's over 700,000 Australians on New Start. There's only 160,000 jobs. who's going to have a go and where and when and what. You know what I mean? It doesn't. The mathematics just doesn't add up.
Yes.
Why don't you do a public records request on how much of his pay goes towards UStart or public funding or something like that?
Yeah, we don't have that.
Yeah, ours are clearly marked about how much is taken from us that goes to some place, you know.
Yeah, we don't have that. We don't. Our taxation office doesn't offer that. So, but this is how shit our government is. It's like they're spending so much money on the military, because of China.
Yeah.
And do you know who's forcing us to do that?
The U.S.
Exactly.
I was mentioning with Kathy because Kathy was saying a lot of good stuff. When we're talking about how government was a business. Now, when you get political money, donation money, that candidate doesn't keep that money. He has to use it within his or her political campaign. I was just saying how Donald Trump, during his campaign in 2016, he would use that political money to have rallies on businesses he owned. So basically, all the money gets funneled back to him.
That's what happens here.
Yeah.
They will have campaign like fundraisers and stuff at friends of the party. Like, you know, we're gonna have a fundraiser. Yeah, no worries. Where are we gonna have it? Oh, Jono's a member of the party and he's got a restaurant or a function room, and we'll have it at Jono's place.
Or a mansion.
It's they just line their pockets. That's all they do. Just line each other's pockets.
How do you think the Australian public is awakening to the idea that they're being robbed? You know, in
Australia's fucking dumb.
Okay, so just like America.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want an electric ute.
Yeah.
A ute is a utility vehicle. It's like a truck, but in a car form. So,
Ryan here, Aaron, he knows a lot more about American politics than Americans do, as an Australian.
Yeah, I can tell. That's great. That's awesome.
well, America has such a influence on the world. You know what I mean? And it's really important that we know what happens in the USA.
You understand? Yeah.
Yeah, and understand the political BS that
Because
gets
every
fed
move,
us.
every move these corrupt folks here, or let's say politicians, make affects what your politicians will do or spend money on or charge you for or write new legislation for you. You know, it's like, wow, that's powerful. You know.
Well, when the USA can turn around and say, we want to build a base in your country, and Australia goes, where? And the USA goes, it's a secret.
Yeah,
It's a secret.
it's a secret.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck.
It's like if they say jump, you just say how high. It's the military type of thing saying.
Yeah, you don't even say how high, you just jump. And you keep jumping until the USA says stop.
Oh, so Ryan, what are your thoughts on the 2020 election?
We're fucked.
Well, you know,
It's rigged. It's all rigged.
you're not excited about any Democratic candidate?
Oh, Bernie Sanders, but he's not going to get in.
What? Hey Ryan, what were your thoughts on the 2016 election?
Corruption.
We're fucked.
And we got fucked over. The world got fucked over. I mean, when you got someone like Donald Trump who has the brain of a Neanderthal and he gets in, it's just like, It's bullshit.
Ryan, do you think the DNC changed since 2016?
Nah. They're still corrupt.
Do you think they're more corrupt, or do you think they're just less corrupt, or the same?
They're the same, but they just hide it.
Who has a bigger Neanderthal brain, Donald Trump or his opposing candidate, Hillary Clinton?
Oh, Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. He's a Neanderthal. He's as dumb as a post.
Okay, all right.
But Hillary Clinton. See, there's the thing is, Donald Trump is just dumb as a post, right? He'll sit there and he'll
make comments,
call your names, all this other type of stuff, and appeal to the dumbest of the electorate, and that's what he did, right? Whereas Hillary Clinton has a superiority complex where she's the best, she's eaten a bit, I'm, and she's corrupt as well. I mean, they're all corrupt. They're all corrupt.
Yeah, but she knows how to do it better than Donald. So when she was
obviously not. Lost.
When she was debating, though, her statements came from more of a legal, factual background of government.
Because she's a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. Right, where Donald
Trump's a dumbass.
He appealed to the chimpanzees out here.
Yeah, right? The Neanderthals.
Right, you're killing me. Oh man!
But that's what he did. He appealed to the Neanderthals, and you just have to watch some of the Trump rallies, and it's like you look at the knuckle draggers that come out of the woodworks. They're all dragging their knuckles, going Trump, Trump.
Huge foreheads, and they were hooting and hollering, and they didn't even know why. Right.
And you know what? They're the people, right, that get upset, right? Mm-hmm. This is like the thing that frustrates me the most. The people who get upset when you dishonor the flag or whatever, and they wear the flag like cape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, could you do the flag any more of a disservice?
Disservice.
Than wearing it like a superhero?
Exactly.
Like, you're not Captain America, dickhead. You're a fucking dumbass redneck from the backwaters of from the hollers of wherever you come from.
Even the big cities. Don't discount rednecks now. I mean, it stretches straight into the cities.
Everybody who wears shit like that is a redneck to me, mate.
Mm-hmm. I hear you,
mate. And it's just really frustrating because the dickheads here in Australia do it too. And the Australians have got this idea in their head that to be pro-Australian, you have to be patriotic. When I was growing up, we didn't use the word patriotic.
Mm.
We just were Australians. We didn't use patriotic as a term to identify as somebody who was loyal to Australia or whatever it is, we just know. But now it's just like it's everywhere. You got to be patriotic to Australia. No, you don't. Not when you've got a government that's shit.
I want to see if we could come up with a new term that trumps being patriotic. Like I don't know if it's the term humanist. Is like we support humans and their freedoms.
I've got a question for you. You don't have to answer it, but
okay,
do you think Trump fondled some kids?
Oh, well, he fondles his own daughter quite well.
Like with Epstein, I mean.
I don't know. So I wouldn't make a guess.
And then the other question is, I don't know. I don't. If he did, he's going to lie about it. If he didn't, then good on him. But my question is why didn't you say anything earlier?
Or Ryan, instead of the question, did Donald Trump fondle kids, which is like it's a shocker to some folks that might be listening, like, hell no, it's just one of those things where it's immediately an answer. How about we say, was Donald Trump a name on Jeffrey Epstein's logbook? Right?
Well, it would be interesting to know. I don't think we'll ever know.
Well, no, because he hanged himself apparently in a.
He didn't hang himself. He was executed.
Unrecorded jail cell.
Yeah. He was executed.
Or he's back on his island. Who knows?
Nah, he's dead. He dead. Just chalk it up to the Clintons, I reckon.
Yeah. Either way.
Here's the thing is, sorry, like Trump has been married, 3 times? And they've always been kind of like fashion show models and stuff. And they weren't young. So, like, I would think that if he was one of those people who like the more younger than legal type of people, he would probably marry someone who's a lot younger, like
yes and no.
I mean, we do see a lot of people who are like their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're marrying someone who's like their 20s and stuff. But we don't see him remarrying with like a 20-year-old. We see him marrying like around 30s and stuff.
No, but the problem is that there's a big difference between 20 and 13. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can't marry a 13-year-old.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't even see him.
But
when he remarried, I don't think he married when the model was like even like 18 or 20. They're like 20, their mid 20s or late 20s, if not their early 30s. So like I would think that if he was going to remarry, and he has a propensity for younger people, then he would probably marry someone who's 18 or remarried.
Nah, I don't think. I mean, he could have married just for the sake of as a front.
Yeah,
people marry fronts. Let's not forget he's a conniving bastard. He's not dumb. He's not dumb by any stretch of the imagination. But
let's also not forget that possibly by us talking about him directly, we might be perpetuating his popularity.
Yeah.
If he's a topic of conversation between us guys who, are looking for other avenues of topic, gee,
he's everywhere on the internet though. Like when they talk about Epstein, the 2 names that constantly come up are Trump and Clinton.
Yeah,
it's just always like
I know, but
Bill lied. Bill lied
with us though, Ryan. Right? Like what really hits home when we hear that story? Does it affect the way I go to Walmart? Does it affect the way I raise my kids? Does it affect anything? No, it's just something that you and I are talking about, and which I don't have a problem with. But
I guess
the popularity. You know what I mean? So
I understand what you're saying, but my problem is that you've got these uber elites that think they're untouchable. Now, if you were accused of these crimes, do you not think you would have every single law enforcement agency beating down your door, pulling you in, questioning you?
Hell no. The law enforcement agencies are created under the president, right?
Yeah, no, but this is what I'm saying. It's like I mean, if you're wrongly accused, by someone, God forbid that anybody's wrongly accused of that type of crime, right?
Yeah.
And do you not think that you would be dealt with differently than what Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and all that have been?
Absolutely.
And that's the problem.
Immediate guilty. Maybe a 15-minute trial.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No evidence supported. Throwing up arguments out of order. Boom.
The jury would have been stacked with women.
Yeah, uneducated folks who believe that yes.
And you would have been pointed out. But this is what I'm saying. This is where you've got people who are in the American justice system who have done nothing wrong and have been sentenced to life in prison, right? And then you've got these people who, like, even when Jeffrey Epstein was done the first time, I mean, it was a 13-month holiday, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't get any cushier.
On house probation, got to go back to his island, right?
Yeah. It got to spend 13 days out of whatever, out there doing whatever he wanted, running businesses and
what if
all that sort of stuff.
What if the Epstein story there has been manufactured, and hey babe, okay, hold on, I gotta go real quick. Go on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, I just struggle to see that type of thing. It just does my head in. It does. It just, and I dare say it happens here in Australia too. I mean, I dare say that there's people in prison in Australia that have been wrongly accused of doing whatever, and spending large chunks of prison time for,
Yeah, there's a industrial prison complex going on there too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wanted
sort of, but it's against the law for the government to thingy prisons, to outsource prisons.
Yeah. Oh, that's, I guess, better than the U.S. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on the BDS, as well as the two congressmen that were prevented from going to Israel and Palestine by Trump, and all the civil unrest that's going on in Hong Kong, France, Brazil, Zimbabwe, etc. And just your thoughts on those.
Okay, so the fact that what's not Omar, but the other one, what's her name? Talib. The fact that she can't go back to her home country is disgusting. It's against her human rights. She's not a criminal. She's actually, especially since she's a representative of a government, which she is. It's downright corruption. Again, it's just Donald Trump overstepping his authority with Benjamin Netanyahu, who's going on trial soon for corruption anyway. So, and Benjamin Netanyahu's wife got found guilty of corruption. So, it's not as if corruption doesn't run in those circles. I think it's pretty obvious that corruption does. I just think it's a massive overreach. And they should be allowed to visit. and they should be given the political standard of what their elected office has given them. You know, when they do visit Israel, they shouldn't be, especially since Israel is a ally of the USA. They shouldn't be banned. They should be allowed to go. They should be allowed to go to Palestine. There's no questions about it. So Hong Kong, China needs to back down, but they won't, because China's all about, because Hong Kong's like a major finance hub. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the Jacobin thing that you've got up there at the moment about it, I mean, it's reverse bigotry. It's exactly what it is. You know what I mean? So, anyway, going back to Hong Kong. So, China needs to back down, but they won't. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a huge mess. And the only reason why China doesn't want to give up Hong Kong is because it's a massive financial hub. So, yeah. I don't agree with China going in there and meddling with the country. They just need to sit back and let Hong Kong do their own shit. I'm a huge disbeliever in the and I put air quotation marks dissidents that Hong Kong, that China should be allowed to take people back to mainland China from Hong Kong for trial. The only time that I believe that somebody should be taken away from the jurisdiction that they're in is if the person has requested it, and then even still, you know, it's like the Julian Assange thing. It's fucked. He should never. He shouldn't be extradited. I mean, it's the Americans, the Chinese. They're all trying to play world police, and yeah, it's people aren't having it. So, France, that's sort of died down now. I don't know what's happening in Brazil. I need to look that up. But yeah, I mean, Macron's out next election anyway. So is Justin Trudeau. He's out. He's not going to last the next election in Canada. So yeah, I think you're going to have a Conservative Party in France and a Conservative Party in Canada. Which is not good, because Conservatives are just about making money for their friends and themselves. What was the other ones?
Brazil, of course, the Yellow Vests in France,
Yeah,
Zimbabwe.
that's died down, the France. What's happening in Brazil and Zimbabwe?
Brazil, there's oh my goodness. It's I'll have to double check. So I'll start with Zimbabwe. They were planning a big protest within Brazil for like education cuts. No. Brazil's education cuts, I'm sorry. And Zimbabwe is over just the economy. And the thing is, there were a lot of mass protests planned in Zimbabwe, but then the police, I think the prime minister or whoever, they knew that it was coming, so they just cracked down on all the activists really fast before the mass protests could be displayed.
Go figure. Yeah, but Zimbabwe's been in a shithole for decades. I mean, when Robert Mugabe was leader for 20 something years, inflation, they had like notes at 20 million whatever's Zimbabwean coffers or whatever it is. You know, it's, I guess, deposing and getting rid of Mugabe was sort of like, they did promise economic change, but I mean, I think Zimbabwe is not wasn't in a great place to begin with, and to expect the economy to be turned around so quickly is not realistic. So, in Brazil, they're protesting against education cuts or for education cuts.
Against education cuts.
Okay, yeah. Well, Brazil's probably one of the South American nations that can't afford, because them and Argentina are the most populous countries in South America.
I think, as far as landmass, I think they're the biggest. So I would guess that they have the most.
I'm so pro education.
I know you are.
Yeah, I'm not an academic at all. Like, I have been diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD and all this other type of stuff, and education is really hard for me. It always has been. Reading's been really hard. It's only now that I've installed a website reader, so I can read website. It doesn't take me 6 months to read a website. I can listen and read at the same time. But it's just crazy that I mean, it's a really, really good way to keep your country, the poorer people in your country poor. It's a really good way, because the poor have no power. Poor never has any power. So if you make sure that only the rich elites get the really good education, then
I'm gonna let someone in, and I'm gonna unzoom so people can't see the number. So give me a second here.
you're right.
Sorry. Where's the zoom? All right, there you go. All right, I'm gonna change your number just so people don't know your number. All right, is this Port Co-op?
Yes, can you hear me? Is there a ridiculous delay?
No, it's fine. It's good.
Good. I can't hear anybody else. I can only hear you, because I think if I turn my computer sound back on, there will be a delay.
No, I haven't talked yet. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Yes, I can.
Yeah. I hadn't talked. I just let Evan bring you in.
All right, it's good that you're able to call in. Awesome.
It's like an Australian takeover.
Yeah, man.
Australia. How's it going, Evan? How you going, mate? Fucking hell, mate.
It's a coup, mate.
But I think you guys are probably on the opposite sides of the political spectrum from what I can decipher.
I don't know. I find the kind of anti-nationalist sort of rhetoric very condescending. The way you talk about Americans as being rednecks, and a lot of these people that you call rednecks are, they have very good values. They're law-abiding. They're hard-working. You sound like an elite, mate.
No,
This is to the Australian, not you, Evan.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, but do you watch much? I'm a huge fan of watching people go to Trump rallies.
Yes.
And
no, I've seen plenty of Trump rallies. I'm aware of his base. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to me,
but his base is broader than that. I mean, his base is basically the entire center of America.
Yeah. And
you're basically you're discounting a lot of people who are Trump supporters. You're basically calling them deplorables.
Yeah, they voted for Trump.
Well, should they have voted for Hillary? Or are you going to take a sort of libertarian position where we shouldn't have voted at all, and we should start kind of anarcho base somewhere?
I mean, you're looking at two really bad candidates, right? Really bad. Probably the worst candidates that America has ever seen. Right? You're looking at.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. But let's, for the purpose of what you're trying to explain, we'll just go. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you're looking at one person who has spent most of her life in the political realm, whether it be First Lady, Secretary of State, yada yada yada, all that type of stuff.
Clinton Foundation.
Yeah. Clinton Foundation.
Yep.
Corruption. She wasn't.
Absolutely.
She definitely wasn't the ideal candidate by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely. It was absolutely rigged. I agree.
Yeah, she stole it from Bernie Sanders. And then the DNC are a corrupt organisation that stacked the system with superdelegates, and then you go and look at.
I understand all that. I understand all that. Yeah.
So, but then you get this guy who comes in who has no political history whatsoever. And he actually, I lied. The only political stuff that he has is to say, I'm a Democrat. And he runs in a party where he knows he's going to actually win. And it's the same, and I use this. These people use the party that they know that they're going to win. Right? Obama did the same. Obama was a Republican, but he was never going to get voted in as a Republican president, so he went down the Democratic route and got voted in.
Obama was a Republican. Explain that to me.
Have you not seen the video where he basically comes out and says, "Yeah, I'm a Republican"?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you need to look that video up. He comes up.
Explain to me though how that's a consistent point. That just in reality, how is he a Republican? That might be rhetoric for all I know. But just tell me how he was a Republican.
His policies are Republican. Obamacare was Romney care. He had the ability to put in single payer healthcare. He had the opportunity to do so much when he got elected because he won by such a large margin, and he squandered it. Right.
Okay, what I think it is he's an establishment candidate. So in many ways, it doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, when you're voting for an establishment candidate that will perpetuate the establishment for the most part, or you could call it a neocon. With the perpetual wars. The reason why I think, look, there's a lot of people on the right that are unhappy with Trump and disappointed because of maybe he hasn't, reached the ambition of what he sort of promised to do. But from an Australian point of view and a point of view as a sort of, citizen of the world, what I like about him is that he's not afraid to stand up for the nation state. And I think that's such a fundamental difference between a sort of open borders candidate like Hillary Clinton, who, behind closed doors says that she wants to, basically take down borders and have these huge economic zones. And this is so disastrous to people. Actually, it's disastrous to those rednecks that you call them, because you're disrupting communities. You're taking away their factories. They all get addicted to opiates, and it's a disaster. I think that what I like about Trump is his narcissism, and I'll tell you why. Because he wants to be liked. He's much closer to a king, and I think it's sort of reaction to a sort of series of weak leaders and weak candidates. It's maybe a bit of overreach, but he wants to be loved. You can tell that. And to be loved, he has to do a good job. And in the sense that he hasn't started any new wars, he hasn't started any regime change. and he might possibly pull out of Afghanistan. Apparently, that will happen before the next election. We will see. I think that no, it's not perfect, but Jesus Christ, he's at least put the brakes on, and you know, I think the trade war with China is genius. I think the trade war with Germany is genius. America should make things. It's important that it makes things and that it employs people. And I think you know, and he's a you know, and he has made efforts in regards to immigration. It's not perfect. No, the wall is not there. But you know, he's at least put the brakes on rather than the opposite, where things would have accelerated. And yep. Well, there are alliances there before he got there, and a lot of people are critical of this, and I think legitimately so. However, it's a pragmatic political reality that he has to deal with, and I think look at it this way: when he's supporting Israel, he's supporting nationalism. He's actually supporting an ethno state. So if you think of it that way. It should make it easier for you know, Americans to have a border, Americans to have a wall, these sorts of things. Yeah, of course I have a problem with those things, but it's pragmatism. I mean, he would be out the door. Well, he would be killed if he suddenly done something radical there. That is just reality. Unfortunately, he's inherited a situation, and he can't really do something revolutionary there. So, and unfortunately, it's difficult. I mean, there's 50 years of work in one direction here. But I like the tact that he's kind of. I like the spin that he's at least put on that issue, which is that he's ultimately supporting nationalism for Israel, and. So hopefully nationalism can be supported at home. Like I said, well, there's an Israeli lobby that basically controls so much. That's why I'm describing it as pragmatism. I think that everything would just fall apart in front of our eyes if he ever really tried to go the other way. It's sad, but it's a truth. Sometimes you just got to pick your battles.
So I disagree with that. I think his love for his daughter outweighs everything. She's Jewish. She converted when she married Jared Kushner. So there's that. And I think that outweighs everything. Okay. And that's been proven over decades, her whole life. You look at all the video clips and stuff like that, he would do everything for her, bend over backwards. The fact that he even put her in, nepotism is just disgusting, right? The fact that he has filled his secretary cabinet with swamp people, billionaires, and they've come and gone. You talked about Hillary Clinton opening the borders and having economic zones and stuff like that, and people being addicted to opiates. They're fucking already addicted to opiates. What are you talking about? It's a fucking crisis. He gave trillions.
Yeah, I know.
Trillions of dollars worth of tax breaks. Trillions of dollars worth of tax breaks. And do you know who's going to suffer the most? The lower income when it comes closer to the expiry of that taxation policy. Their taxes go up. That's a fact. Okay. He is only batting. He speaks to everybody. He speaks to the people that come to his rallies, even the rednecks. Right? And they're not all rednecks. I said the ones that wear the flag as a cape are rednecks. And there's plenty of them. Right? Australia does it too. I find it quite disturbing that most people in Australia that wear the Australian flag as thongs, wear it as a cape, wear it as a hat, wear it as underwear, wear it as a...
Why are you offended by that?
Because it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical. I mean, what, you think people walking on the flag is a good thing?
No. No, I don't see it. I don't see it as a problem. No, I don't.
Wow.
Nobody in Australia does. No, because we see it a different way. As you said, our version of nationalism is quite different. It's not quite the the flag isn't a sacred sacrament or something. We see it a bit different. Like Australia has a different.
Obviously, not all Australians, but yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately nationalism is a good thing because the nation state has served people well for a long time, and when we remove that and we become a kind of a global utopia, that's more like the EU or the Soviet Union, and it's a disaster. So in very broad general terms, I see nationalism as a good thing, and the more nationalism in America, the better, and the more blacks and Hispanics and Asian people that are nationalist, the better. It creates the common ground between everybody because it's quite a diverse country with racial divisions. The more nationalist everybody is, the better. Absolutely, it's sort of tying them together. I think because then you can have a higher trust society. And it's much easier to walk down the street without being, hurt. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to have common ground and to all be on the same team and believe in something. Yeah, okay, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but the more you get rid of that, you get Antifa that hate America, hate the idea of it, hate the border, hate the police, hate the army, hate ICE. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Look, nothing is perfect. Sometimes, perfect is the enemy of the good, man. And sometimes you're kind of nitpicking when it's like in the general terms, you remove nationalism in some kind of Randian dream, and you just have a disaster.
Yeah, and nationalism is like generally on the right. There's been more right-wing mass murders in America than anything. Yeah, yay nationalism. Hang on.
That's actually bullshit.
I can give you two groups of people in two countries, right? That'll tell you to go get fucked on nationalism. And they're both.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Tell me.
They're both indigenous to those lands, right? Indigenous Americans and Indigenous Australians. I'll tell you to go get fucked because Australia's not there. The land is theirs, but the society is not.
I tell you what. The absolute look. That's another topic, and I'm happy to go into it. But the disastrousness of the left's policies for Aboriginal people in Australia is like in Central Australia, there were these Lutheran missions, and Aboriginal people still talk about them as being incredibly successful, right? They were self-sufficient. They didn't need any government funds. The people were working the land, fishing, etc. Gough Whitlam comes along, I guess in the 60s, and says, Aboriginal people can have welfare now. So what did they do? They walked off. And you know what Aboriginal people call the dole? Eben, the dole is what we call like a welfare payment where people can basically permanently be on welfare for their entire lives if they want to. Aboriginal people call the dole Aboriginal people call the dole sit down money. Sit down money. Aboriginal people can be very, very funny. They've got a great sense of humour, and that is a great way of putting it because that's what you do. That's what you do. And Aboriginal people are in perpetual welfare cycle crisis of drug addiction and abuse. It's horrendous. It's horrendous, and we keep them in.
What's the current government doing to stop that?
What is the cause of that? Also, yeah.
Well, there's several causes. I mean, if you want to go down the victim mentality route, well, then it can never be solved. At the end of the day, they are not held accountable for anything. That's the problem. They're not. Do you think and that they don't have they don't. Wait a minute. They don't have leadership within their groups to take them somewhere different. It's only victim. It's like
before the British conquest. Do you think the Aboriginals were drug addicted, welfare, helpless?
No, they didn't even have the wheel. No, they didn't have welfare. They didn't have the wheel, but they were rather communistic. It's in their culture. I'll give you an example. When one Aboriginal person gets a job, right, in the community,
not too sure. I don't care about the job they get from the settlement that you guys live under, but were they drug addicted at the time that, let's say, Wellington, founded the land, or whoever it is?
George, Captain Cook. Well, he didn't find it. MacArthur.
Not as far as I know. No, but if there was certainly.
What caused
they would have found some funky berry out in the outback that would have got them high. Let's not. I'm joking. That's a joke. But no.
I'll happily accept that we came and invaded and in many senses destroyed their culture. I'm happy to admit that. I'm happy to admit even genocides, and I don't want to whitewash that stuff. However, unless they take responsibility for their current predicament and choose to pull themselves out, nothing will happen.
How do they do that?
This is the thing. I don't have an answer for them, and there's always a white person's answer. I don't have an answer. The only thing that I know has ever worked in terms of Aboriginal people being safe with the Lutheran missions, and that's never going to happen again because that's so un-PC. The Lutheran missions is never going to happen. So I don't have an answer.
Religion in the past has always been like a really good substitute for government, like government policy.
I don't know if you're being sarcastic, but I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that the more our society has,
it was a question like religious institutions are better than government policy.
Or Ryan, we could say that religion came first, and then government was a substitute for religion. Let's say either way.
I just think that like you can say that. I mean, I'm going to look into this Lutheran stuff, but from my understanding of I'm in Victoria, so I've done a lot of study on the Indigenous people of Victoria, and they were treated such abominably shithouse. They were slaves. They tried to breed them out of existence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
Now, government policy today and the constant rotting of the system.
Oh, it's an industry. It's very bad.
It keeps these people behind. Now, to tell poor people to bootstraps is not a fix to the problem. It never will be. It never will be. It never will be. Because if somebody can't afford to bootstraps, then how the fuck do they put them on?
That's bullshit. Because it's bullshit because you know that they're given welfare and you know that they're just pissing it against the wall. They're just
the welfare. Your very government. That's not a fix, right? Welfare is not a fix.
Well, but you said that they can't afford bootstraps. So I'm just saying, and I don't mean literally bootstraps, but you're saying that they can't afford anything. The welfare payment is more than enough to live on, and therefore it.
You're trying to tell me that $270 a week is enough to live on, especially when you're renting in this country. Are you kidding?
Yes, because I'm on welfare and I rent. So yes, it's enough to live on.
Go get a job, bro.
Oh, can I link you something? Can I link?
I'm a filmmaker. I'm using it to subsidize my life as a filmmaker before I make it.
No, hey, that was a harsh statement. Go get a job. But I've been in your position, yes.
I'm
No,
not
it's not harsh.
advocating.
At the same time,
I'm not offended by it.
hey, at the same time, it's only a temporary thing. I mean, you as a man, as part of this society community, and have skills that you have, you can go out and find a profitable position somewhere, right?
Yes, I'm actually right now. I'm actually in transition. I'm finding success as a filmmaker, and I'm in that period where I'm not quite earning enough to be off of welfare. But it's a transition.
But you're living off Ryan's dime. You know what I mean?
I'm on welfare too, so.
How can you survive, man? You should be dead on the road. Come on, it's impossible to live on welfare. It's impossible. You just told me it's impossible.
Listen to me, dude. I owe many people lots of money.
Yeah.
I got multiple medical issues. I owe lots of money to lots of people.
Yeah.
So you don't know my circumstances of my medical health and all that type of stuff. So let's not go down that route, because
sure. But I'm just saying that by world standards. Wait a minute. By world standards, if you are on the dole in Australia, by world standards, you're actually doing quite well. That's just a fact. Now, it is a bit more expensive to live in Melbourne. I live in Adelaide. It is cheaper. So maybe it's a little easier for me. Okay, and we don't have to discuss welfare. We're talking about Indigenous people. Look, it's hard.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Kathy's got a question for you, Co-op. She says, and what about copper mines and islands for refugees? That was directed at you, Port.
What about copper mines and
Nauru? Christmas
and islands for refugees. We basically have the immigration system that America needs. We're lucky we're an island. Like Australia is an island, and therefore we don't need a wall, we don't need a border. And our immigration system is very, very, very popular at home. It's the envy of really the world. Europe is absolutely going down the toilet. I think we have a secure border. That allows us to have these social programs. Because we don't have the same kinds of influxes of people exploiting it. So it's far more sustainable. That's the thing. And the thing is,
the richest, one of the richest countries in the world that the world has ever seen. Right, and that's what we are. Let's not sugarcoat it. And we've got a government that's just given away billions of dollars in taxes to the rich, like Donald Trump did. And that's what Scott Morrison did.
As to remain globally competitive, so our businesses don't go broke, yes?
It's not going to businesses. It's going to
why would business go broke?
Businesses aren't going to go broke. Our dollar is in the fucking shitter. We've gone from the number one in the world, economy-wise. Wayne Swan gets the economic prize that every fucking treasurer in the world wants, right? And now we're down at like 23. Our economy is, and all we are fed by this fucking government is our economy is doing great. We're doing great things. You know, our economy is moving forward. Everything, every sign that you can measure the economy is it's going down. There's nothing good about it, right?
Yeah, one of the problems Australia has is we have a very unsophisticated economy. It's basically based on mining and agriculture, but we don't really manufacture anything. We're not really a hub for much else apart from education. So, like, there's an index of showing. I think we have the sophistication level of like Mongolia or something. We're not. We used to manufacture cars. We don't do that anymore, and that's very, very sad. And I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think that can be blamed probably on Tony Abbott, but
Foster. Yeah.
fosters.
I just want to bring back to the subject of Aboriginal people, and you said, well, you think that telling them. Wait a minute, we just
think about this. Think about immigrants. Think about immigrants as new labor, right? So that your child can move up through the labor system, whatever it might be, there in Australia.
The corporate ladder.
Yeah, exactly, the ladder.
But the problem is in Australia, they only go after the one type of immigrant, the non-whites.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if you're white, you get to stay. If you're dark or brown or black, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. There's no evidence for that, and all you need to go is walk through the city of Melbourne, and you'll see that it's incredibly racially diverse. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, I'm not saying that every black person gets kicked out, or every dark-skinned person gets kicked out, or every brown, or every Asian, or whatever. There are people that come in this country legitimately, migrate, and get in the right way. But there are many, many people, i.e. New Zealanders, Brits, some Americans, come into the country
and stay
and stay over their visa that are never targeted. But if you're if you're an Indian or a Sri Lankan or an Afghani or an Iraqi or whatever, Peter Dutton's on their doorstep knocking on the door going, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing in our country?"
I don't think there's any evidence for that. I think that's just it's just your feelings. I think.
Yeah, no. I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
I don't think there's any racially targeting at all, and it's just not true.
Kathy B asks, "Does Australia still have White Australia policy?" I don't know what that is.
No, that's something they got rid of in the 60s, and there's no way we could have a White Australia policy because, like I said, if you go through our capital cities, you would sometimes you would think you are in Asia. Absolutely. So that's we got rid of that a long time ago, and in fact, there are a lot of Chinese here, and I have a friend from Hong Kong who is very, very concerned about that. He says that they're taking over institutions, universities. That they have these Confucius centers in the universities now that are basically an arm of the Chinese government, and people go there to just hold a sign against the Chinese invasion of Hong Kong, and they get punched in the face by the Chinese. That's the thing. Wow. And you're spied upon. You're spied upon if you're a Chinese or part of Falun Gong or anything like that. And the problem is we don't talk about it because we're addicted to Chinese money. That's where we send all of our minerals. So we're addicted to their money, and unfortunately, we have to we are putting up with a lot of this. And as soon as a politician like Hasty talks about this, and he makes a very good point. We shouldn't be comparing China with Nazi Germany. We should be comparing China with China, as in comparing communist China with communist China. It hasn't changed. It's the same thing. And it's they killed 40 million of their own people, and they're creating a dystopian digital network of social credit, which we should not be adopting.
No, we shouldn't adopt that shit. That's crazy. That's crazy shit. I would never go down that route. Never.
Communism gets a pass. Communism just seems to get a pass. And particularly when we're addicted to their money. So that's created a conflict of interest, and even I'd say levels of corruption, definite corruption. Mm-hmm. It's very sad. Very sad.
Did you watch the I think it was the Four Corners on the Chinese and their influence on Australia? I'm pretty sure it was Four Corners. How
was it recent or a year ago?
About a year ago, I think
I did. Yeah.
Where the Chinese were actually ringing students and stuff like that, and then telling them to spy and on universities. Oh
Yes.
man, I was freaking out. That shit freaked me out.
Very dangerous, and this is why I'm very pro-American. Because America's done bad things, absolutely. It continues to do bad things, absolutely. But but if we were to remove the American alliance, it would only be natural that China would step in and fill that vacuum, and that would be really dangerous. I mean, all you need to do is compare China to Hong Kong or China to Taiwan. Taiwan and Hong Kong are civilized places where you're not living in fear, and whereas China is very, very different, and I would say really backward. I think the cultural revolution stunted them in so many ways, whereas the other countries were able to flourish.
Yeah, but on that point of the, sorry, let me try. On the point of the Americans doing bad things, or America doing bad things, I think that's what we're trying to stop. You know, people who support Julian Assange, people like Aaron and Travis and Kathy and Meyer Miar and everybody who watches Kelly. I could go on a list of people that I know who's really trying to just stop all the bad stuff that's going on. That's what we're trying to do. And as much as Trump does some good things and he does some bad things, he's not tackling that issue of getting that corruption out. And for me, some of the bad things that he does too is when he says drain the swamp, then he puts in people like John Bolton, who's a big war hawk.
Abrams.
Yeah. And he puts in that guy who pretty much got rid of net neutrality, which is a bad thing. No one wanted that. Yeah. So, you know, like, I don't see pragmatism there.
I agree with you.
Okay. Yeah, it's just
I'm not holding him up on the pedestal quite yet. My argument is a pragmatic one that, on balance, I think he's would be a far better president than Hillary Clinton. I think he is far better than Obama. And the proof is in things like a lack of regime change in Syria. The dogs of war were barking, woof, woof, woof. And they've continued to with Iran. And yes, he has Bolton there, but he's not entering. There's no Bolton's wars this time. You know, I hate Bolton. I've always hated him.
I've got a question.
Yep.
What's your thought on the sanctions that Trump keeps putting on Venezuela?
I have a question real quick.
You go first.
Yeah, Ryan. What's the other gentleman's name that's speaking?
Portfolio up. I don't know his name.
You can call me Mike. Okay. I'll out myself, Mike.
Okay, man. Yeah, Mike, you mentioned that China's a scary place to live. You know, compared to Hong Kong, compared to Taiwan, you know, it's a scary place to live. I just have a question. Have you ever lived in China? Have you ever been there?
No. But I'm confident on the information that I have that it's a strange mixture of totalitarian and lawless, if that makes sense.
How do you know that though? Because I lived there for 6 years, and it was the most free place I ever lived. And I'm from
do you mean in a kind of almost lawless sense?
In a non-police state sense.
Right. Okay. Please go on. I'm happy to listen. Happy to learn how it was free and a free society.
Sure. There was no regulation. I mean, for me as a foreign visitor there, yes, I had to go through certain paperwork processes to be a resident there. But that was it. After that, you can do whatever you want. You can walk across the street. You can as long as you don't hurt somebody else or impede some other person's
or say anything against the government.
Right? There would be no police interaction. All the police did was show up when a bike got hit by a car. You know,
Yeah. But that's why I said it was just a strange mixture of totalitarianism and lawlessness.
That's not
From what I understand.
Yeah, that's not totalitarianism. You never even saw the police, actually. Until something happened. If there's a car accident, yes, the police will come out, of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
Yeah, but until then, they went back to their posts. They stayed right there.
Okay. Can I Can I ask you a question? So would you describe it as a successful society and something that any other country should be modeling itself on?
Absolutely. It's absolutely a successful society, considering the amount of people that are in that society. Dealing with it through the education. Just the processes of 1.5 billion people. You know, absolutely
Uh,
successful. Major
is
hubs,
it
major ports. Just awesome government interaction with other governments is what I think China's doing great.
It's an interesting perspective. I mean, you're more obviously way more experienced and educated on the topic than I am. So I can only go on Chinese friends and YouTubers and information that I've seen. But I have looked like that YouTuber Serpenza. You know, that South African guy. I think it was the first YouTuber. I mean, he would you say that his insights are accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because he describes it as free, like as you're saying. When you're going through certain parts of China and I get it. I get that part of it, but just the level of corruption and you buy a Heineken and it's fake and there's like that all
there's a ton of fake about it too, but when you or me are on the street, man, you don't see a police presence, governing everything you do, walking. You don't see that.
Isn't that why isn't that why they're bringing in social credit system because they just don't have an effective system to rule over the people? Isn't that why they're bringing that in?
I don't know why.
And isn't there that kind of I remember that footage? And look, I might be a goon, like an idiot that is just gullible to propaganda. But remember when there was that dead person on the road and people just walk over them, like step over them and mind their own business. It's just kind of strange.
There's another property of Chinese culture that says, look, if it doesn't belong to you, don't mess with it. Right? There is a communistic kind of approach to problems, saying, hey, if it's not my problem, the government will deal with it. Right? And so, and that's where you get, after the Mao Revolution and all that, look, the government's going to take care of all the problems, just let it go. Because if you were to touch that person, you could possibly, by another person, be charged with that person's death, let's say, So
yes, but that person might need care. That person might need care, but we look the other way. It's hard because I guess I'm brought up with Christian values. It's very.
Is it your duty to?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
In our societies, yes. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. For us, I think that I think we have it right.
Yeah, but in their society with 1.6 billion people, they say, I'm not going to touch it. Look,
but that's terribly inefficient. When a society is basically that we won't help one another. That's I think that.
Yeah, but they have 400 times the people you have. You know what I mean? It's not like
but it's still but if you live in I still don't see why that makes a difference.
Because
if you don't love your neighbor, you're gonna create problems.
You only love your neighbor if your neighbor can help you, right? If your neighbor wants to kill you, you're not going to love your neighbor, right? So
yes.
in a society with 1.5 billion people living all in the same fucking area. When you live there for a long time, you start to realize that you kind of understand that reality of you can't care for everyone. Me and you can't, right? And especially when the government comes on every day saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to take care of the people," that communistic point of view, which China is known for. They're going to do that. So you just leave it alone, and it sucks. But you know what? How many people die in Australia every day without people doing one thing, or America, or Europe, or so we can make correlations. But
and the thing is, I don't want to change China. I want to make that clear. I'm absolutely for a nation determining its own way, even if it is a dictatorship. It's not really my place. I mean, imagine if you're a Muslim in China and you've been put in, a concentration camp. I don't like those. I don't like those things. What I'm saying is, I don't want my society to become China. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, religions are respected in China. There were Christian churches, Muslims, Taoist, Hindu, Buddhist.
So explain the concentration camps right now where the Uyghur people are being re-educated.
Okay, well,
tell me how that's free and a good thing.
The Uyghurs would be like if you're in Sydney, and what's the very, very far west point of Australia, like one little area, just very far away, which is indigenous people, but China still claims that land, or Australia still claims that land, and they're trying to say,
I understand.
Yeah, it's like a totally different culture, okay? But of course, China as a country with long-standing history needs to control its area. Otherwise, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Russia, Mongolia will take the Uyghur area, which is what those people are. They're not.
Yeah. So why do they need to be put into concentration camps and be re-educated?
I don't know if they actually are, but that is a
propaganda. It's absolute fact. Is my other Australian guy still on the line? Are you there? Is he gone?
Ryan?
He's here, but he might have taken a break or something.
Oh, okay. Because I just wanted to see if he was aware of this as well. Is anybody else in the chat aware of this? I mean, they call them education centers or something, but they're very clearly concentration camps and re-education centers.
Okay. So what do you think the Australian public school is? Let's say.
Oh, I have a big problem with a public education system. It is actually quite Marxist. Yeah.
Re-education, concentration. Correct.
Yeah, but it can be opted out of. It's not compulsory. You can send your child to a religious school, a religious school in Australia.
It's compulsory. And I don't know for a fact, but I'll bet you that, because in every country, education is the key to servitude. So it's compulsory.
It's almost like George Orwell's 1984. They wouldn't call it a concentration camp. They would call it a re-educational center, so people don't think of it as a concentration center.
Can I tell you something about Australian public school system, which is incredibly Orwellian? We have the LGBTQ kind of education in schools, which is quite extreme considering how young the children are. They're talking about, different forms of sex and well before sex education used to be taught even. And the name for it, I mean, they're talking about, all kinds of stuff, right? It's quite extreme. It's called Safe Schools. The program that does that is called Safe Schools. And I think that's just a wonderful Orwellian framing of really the sexualization and confusion of children, because they're also taught, the boys are now taught that masculinity is toxic, And so it's only natural that because children want to be rewarded, that they will then adopt a different behavior. I really, my biggest concern in the West is the erosion of the meritocracy. Everything is upside down now. And I'm a filmmaker, so in our film festivals, all the films are gay now. You know, like it, and I'm not against gay films, but I don't think it's diversity when it's a sort of minority rule. You know, it's everything is upside down, and that's what worries me because we're all being distorted. We don't have a hierarchy to climb anymore because that is my biggest concern, because that is causing dysfunction. And there will be more shootings. There will be all these things because there isn't a way to be in your natural state. If you sort of,
we get it. The Chinese re-education camps, you know, the concentration camps. Is there anything like that happening on the land of Australia with the Aboriginals? Are you going to sit here and tell me that there are no education schools for Indigenous folks to be re-educated and possibly concentrated into one area so that they can join the Australian system, right?
there is, as in the schools, yes.
Oh, okay. So why are you so worried?
And they don't work. I can tell you, it doesn't work, and it's a disaster.
Why are we so worried what China's doing with the Uyghurs then?
Because they're being locked up in a camp permanently until they're re-educated. We do not do anything like that.
But who says they're being locked up in a camp? Who says that?
That's what's happening. It's mainstream news.
Have you been there? Have you been to Xinjiang? Have you been to Xinjiang province? Have you been to Guangxi? Have you been to Liaoning?
No, I haven't been to China. I haven't.
How do go there? That's what I'm saying.
Well, does that mean I can't have opinion about any country that I haven't been to?
I'm just saying that before we make claims about what a country is doing against a certain people, we should have maybe second-hand knowledge. Maybe first-hand would be best.
So Kathy said something, and I kind of asked her a question. Is like, okay, so she said compulsory education. I was a secretary educational teacher, but I don't know what the SEC means. But what I was taught to teach wasn't acceptable, and I was a filmmaker, photojournalist. And my response is, when a teacher can't teach from the teacher's own experience, what are the students learning? I mean,
ideology. Yes, I agree. If that's what you mean, there's the school system in Australia, the public school system, and I've gone through it, is quite ideological. But now, in this sort of more polarized time, it is far more ideological. And the reason why I was being sort of pro-nationalistic is that our schools are overtly anti-nationalistic, and there's some things I could send you in the curriculum that have been leaked by sort of concerned teachers. It is very ideological. There's a teachers' union, and it's very, very powerful. It's quite ideological, and in this polarized age of a sort of culture war, they've very much taken aside, and absolutely creating a generation of. I think if we're not already demoralized, it's on its way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as though, like, in any other sense of what teaching means, the teacher who has students, the teacher teaches the students from their experience. But then when a teacher has to not do that and use some curriculum, I mean, that person's not really a teacher anymore, right? I don't know what...
I'll give you an example, actually, of something that's quite interesting. Sorry, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yes, I hear. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend that teaches in a private school actually, and she went on a free trip to Israel to be educated, and came back, a total Zionist, and now she's teaching a generation of children. So yeah, and I know that she is addicted to travel. So I know that she took that because she wanted the trip, and she'd already spent too much money on holidays. A lot. I know this because I know her, right? So it's an absolute fact that she basically did a deal with the devil because she wanted to, have a nice sunny holiday. It's sad, but it's true. And now she's a total Zionist. And I said to her, look, try and see the other side or something. But like she's all in. She's all in with Zionism, and probably so will her kids. As in the kid, not her. She has no children. I think that these are basically her surrogate children. It's getting a bit late for her to have kids now. But that happens, Israel and these lobbies have a lot of money to educate us all. That's just one little tidbit for you.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of sucks. I mean, for example, I mean, everyone learns differently too, and I think that's a thing with public schools, educational systems, is that is that
Korea.
the people who teach, sometimes they have to, if the student isn't learning, it's like, okay, how can we get you to understand what I'm trying to teach? And it's like trying different methods. And I think that's also another problem with the school systems is it's taught one way, or it's taught a specific way. And if the child doesn't get it, well, the child doesn't get it, and then they kind of fail, or they get a bad grade, and the student doesn't learn anything.
Yeah, in fact, you have this in America too, Waldorf schools. Yes. They are not uniform. They're all quite different because they are quite reflective of those that community that has started the school. And when I was a small child, I visited one just when I was leaving kindergarten into proper schooling, reception. We visited this Steiner school, which was filled with creativity and just lots of handmade art and a little area for puppet shows and puppets and all this stuff. I didn't know what it was until years later, but I can tell you I did very badly in mainstream education. I never really learned how to spell properly. I still can't spell, right? Yeah. And I would have been much better off, I believe, in that system. And the more that I learn about Rudolf Steiner and his sort of philosophy to education, he was a bit of an autodidact, and he did learn from experience. I regret not going through that system, I must say, because I failed school. I failed high school ultimately.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
I'm just saying that there are alternatives. There is homeschooling. I think in a way the crux of the problem is that from the 60s onwards, kids stop listening to their parents. So the lineage of wisdom is cut, and I think that has created all kinds of problems, and in many ways we are in the end game of that, because those baby boomers don't really care. They're just spending their children's inheritances, and we're sort of propping them up. At least in the Australian context, it's very hard to own a home in Australia now. The housing prices are very, very high, and so what that means is it's very hard to start a family. Everything is kind of against the family now. Yeah. I would say that's the biggest problem here. I can't quite say for the rest of the West, but we stopped listening to our parents. And I'm so blessed that my parents are not boomers. They were actually before that. So the 60s, they don't even know what the 60s is. That's what's so awesome, is that there's nothing countercultural bullshit with my parents. They're very practical people. They know how to build things. Yes, they divorced, But when my mum remarried, they actually built the house themselves. You know, my dad knows how to fix things, do things. He was a potter, like at making pottery, and it was self-taught. He went to a school to learn, even though the teacher, they didn't know how to throw a pot. They were doing these things called pinch pots, where you're kind of fiddling it by hand. It's like a very crude. It looks like it's made by a 4-year-old. Yeah. Well, he because there was access to a potter's wheel there, he just taught himself. Yeah. You know, like I'm so. You know, my dad was born in London and in 1939. So he remembers the German bombings and everything. I'm just so blessed that my parents are not boomers. I've turned out quite different, I think, to my own generation.
Yeah. Cheers to your family, definitely. Cheers to your family, for sure, and your life. He so sorry, Bum. He just said that it's unaffordable now to live in Australia, right? Like,
to own a home, to own a home, it's very hard.
My point is, you should keep voting. Yeah. Keep voting.
Should keep what voting?
Yeah.
I think he's being sarcastic, but like when you mentioned Rudolf Steiner, what's interesting is a lot of people don't know who he is, and there's a lot of things attributed to him that people don't realize that they are doing, like biodynamic or organic farming. Was a concept.
We have the most wonderful milk in South Australia because of biodynamic farming.
Yeah.
We have the most gorgeous, wonderful milk. I'm telling you that it's almost like a spiritual experience drinking it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's something that I think a lot more people should know about. About Rudolf Steiner. Although there are some other like esoteric parts of Rudolf Steiner's life that people may not agree with or something like that. But. Yes. Like the schooling system he set up with the Waldorf schools and his farming methodologies, he had a lot more to offer than just the esoteric things that he was involved.
He was a Renaissance man.
Yeah, but I think I did a like on topic on him before, and it's great. I wish more people would kind of look into a lot of people who just aren't touted in mainstream and in schools and stuff like that, and it's like they had good ideas and they were just largely ignored, whether on purpose or what, I don't know.
He claims that he would learn more from an old uneducated villager on the side of the road picking herbs, and he would just ask him questions. That's the way he's a person that asked a lot of questions. And he tried to kind of take a lot of wisdom and so it's not all things that he made up himself, but he's kind of channeling a lot of wisdom and then trying to progress that. And I think the danger with looking at people like Steiner is to purely follow their ideas, but not to explore and come up with your own solutions, because that's what we need more of. We need more Rudolf Steiners. We need more people trying to find the best way forward. I mean, okay. I know that sometimes when you look at, say, someone like L. Ron Hubbard, like who also had that kind of Renaissance man thing where he's writing all the different things and coming up with different ideas in how to live. But you look at the Scientologists, none of them are actually like that. They're just following his ideas. Like one would think, okay, if you think Hubbard is good, you would want to be Hubbard and kind of explore and find your own ways. But instead, it's a very rigid system, its own form of totalitarianism. So, like, I think that the Steiner stuff is interesting, but yeah, you have to take it with a pinch of salt because he did delve into some of that darker spirituality. Although he did say he was a Christian, particularly towards the end. I think that at the end of the day, we should all be Rudolf Steiners, in that we should be looking at the world with open eyes and just trying to find what works, rather than, as you say, just be educated, i.e. programs. Like you should explore. And I know that he did promote a lot of exploration in the education system. So Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm not an expert on him, by any stretch, but I'm certainly inspired by him and influenced.
Yeah. And it's good. I'm glad that there's someone here that knows about him. I think like ordinary, a lot of people that I talk with, they go, "Who's Rudolf Steiner?" So it's kind of nice. All right, I think it's time to go. It's 3 hours and 46 minutes that I've been on, and I've got a lot of stuff to do tomorrow. But we'll keep it going another night. I think I'm gonna try to do either Monday or Tuesday night with a fishing talk. So I don't know if you like to fish or not, but just kind of it also is pertinent. I think fishing is a big part of life. It has been and throughout history. It seems to be less so. And the thing is, I think when we talk about fishing, we really talk about what's going on with the waterways, the watersheds, the ocean, the rivers, the lakes, the ponds, the reservoirs, the dams, how they're affecting everything, and how fish runoff and stuff was always a good way to provide nutrients to soil. I mean, fishing has a lot of good things to talk about, even though most people just talk about, oh, what did you catch, right? So I think we're going to dive into a lot more things with just the fishing talk than just how to tie lures, how to fish for a certain fish. And
well, we're so removed from the old ways. That's the problem, and it's not just about the meat on the table. It's about all those other aspects. I agree.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways, thanks
bioeconomics is what you could call it.
Thanks for joining in, Mike. Thanks for joining in, Aaron, and Ryan. Thanks for joining in. I'm glad you're able to join in. I wish I could send you a new computer that wouldn't break the bank. Because sending stuff to Australia, man, is so expensive. I don't know why.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for having me on the program and putting up with my diatribes.
Oh, it's fine. People need an outlet, and I think we all learn from each other. Some things that you said I would have known unless you said it, and same thing with Aaron and Ryan. So
yeah, I enjoyed it. It's no big deal.
Kathy says she learns a lot from me. It's like, no, I learn a lot from you guys. So we all learn from each other, and I think people need this type of talk. It doesn't have to be a debate. It could be a conversation. We can agree on differences, but we gotta allow each other to talk.
God bless Trump.
All right. God bless you guys then. How about that?
Okay. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Good night, folks.